Chapter 56-34. As for Yu Yi, Langusia directly ignored him. As a sea beast, he was actually very perceptive and knew who was in charge here. Lin Yi nodded, and with a flip of his hands, he condensed 2 super pill firebombs. This time, Lin Yi added his own spiritual sense into them, and the ratio was relatively high, which made it easier to control the direction of the explosion. Not waiting for Yu Yi and Langusia to react, Lin Yi had already thrown out the super pill firebombs. The 2 bombs pulled away from each other, slanted upwards, and exploded outwards. With a loud bang, a huge hole ran through the entire superstructure of the base, but the broken parts didn't fall down, it was completely torn apart by the explosion. Yu Yi was a little dumbfounded. Lin Yi's strength really refreshed his impression of him again and again. Between killing Lin Yi immediately and improving his strength to kill Lin Yi, Yu Yi once again firmly chose the latter. Of course, this determination would only last until the next opportunity to immediately kill Lin Yi appeared. Lin Yi turned around and made a hole in the ground with the glass jar as the center, then directly lifted this piece of ground with his true qi. After testing it, he felt that the weight was okay, so he turned to Yu Yi and helped him put the instruments on it. Yu Yi hurriedly moved the surrounding connected instruments to this piece of ground, and scattered them so that Lin Yi could maintain his balance. However, in his heart, he was thinking that Lin Yi was a little bastard. He didn't know whether he came to save the sea beast or to destroy other people's houses. Lin Yi waited for Yu Yi to pack up, then transformed into his soul state, but with both hands holding the entire piece of ground, he flew out of the hole. Yu Yi couldn't fly, so he could only directly jump on it, and then call the 2 flying spirit beasts. The 2 of them landed on their own flying spiritual beasts and quickly flew towards Ruined Town. As Lin Yi was still in his soul form, he carried the entire weight of the ground on his body. As a result, the flying spiritual beast beneath him did not carry much weight and did not slow down at all. It wasn't that Lin Yi couldn't fly, but if he had to carry such a large piece of ground, it would be a bit strenuous for him to use his primordial spirit to fly. Half a day later, the 2 of them returned to Ruined Town. The various sects had already returned to their respective residences in an inn, and only the sea beasts led by the clown sea serpent were gathered together. "Prince Langusia, are you all right?" When the clown sea serpent saw Langusia in the glass jar, he immediately went forward and asked anxiously. Langusia opened his eyes and nodded. "So it's Snake Shichiro. I heard that you asked this human to save me. Thank you so much." Snake Shichiro quickly smiled and said, "It's all part of my duty. Besides, we've been friends since we were young. I can't just watch you suffer. Let's skip the pleasantries. Hurry up and think of a way to get me out of this damn jar." Langusia wiggled his body. It was obvious that he was annoyed by this glass jar. Snake Shichiro turned to look at Lin Yi and said, "Lin brothers, can't you get rid of these things?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said, "You don't know Langusia's situation, that's why you're asking. What's going on?" Snake Shichiro was stunned and asked in confusion. Lin Yi pointed at Langusia and said, "Can't you feel Langusia's aura? He's already at the early stage of mysterious ascension." Snake Shichiro felt it for a moment, and then said with some envy, "He's really at the early stage of mysterious ascension. It's only been 2 days, and he has soared from the early stage of nascent soul to the early stage of mysterious ascension. This guy got a blessing in disguise. It's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse." Lin Yi said lightly, "In order to use Langusia's genes to make the fusion potion, the people in the center first used an unstable test potion to raise his strength to the early stage of mysterious ascension, and then extracted Langusia's genes to use. If it was only the early stage of nascent soul Langusia, it would not be able to make a potion to raise his strength to the early stage of mysterious ascension." Yes, that's what happened." Snake Shichiro nodded quickly, with an expression of understanding. Yu Yi tilted his head and asked in confusion, "You can understand?" Snake Shichiro shook his head decisively and said, "I don't understand." "If you don't understand, why are you pretending to understand? You made me think that I'm so stupid that I'm not even comparable to a sea snake, and I almost started to doubt my life. What the hell?" Lin Yi was too lazy to pay attention to the indignant Yu Yi, and continued, "It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Simply put, the center created a potion that can raise one to the mysterious ascension stage, But humans will die if they use it, so they captured Langusia and used his strong physique of the Sea Beast King to fuse this potion. Although it was not completely successful, they can already extract materials from Langusia's body to make a more stable, more perfect, and more powerful potion, helping the human practitioners in the center to break through the mysterious ascension stage. This conclusion was made by Lin Yi based on some of Dafeng's words and his own inference. Although it could not be proved, Lin Yi believed that it should be very close to the truth. Shi Qilang came to a sudden realization and said, "I understand now that you put it this way. That's why Langusia's condition is very unstable right now. Although that medicine increased his strength, it also destroyed Langusia's body at the same time. The things on his body were used to preserve his life. Yes, you are very smart. If we remove those things, Langusia is likely to die immediately. What do you think we should do?" Lin Yi brought Langusia back, is to leave this problem for Snake Shichiro to solve. Snake Shichiro immediately shook his head and said, "Then don't remove it. If Langusia dies, I will be buried with him." "Snake Shichiro, are you still my brother?" Langusia shouted, obviously very dissatisfied with Snake Shichiro's words. Snake Shichiro turned his head and advised patiently, "Langusia, don't be agitated. I am also doing this for your own good. Look, when you are agitated, you are bleeding." "Bleeding? Damn, why are you bleeding?" Lin Yi was also shocked, quickly turned his head to look. Sure enough, the number of things that were inserted into Langusia's body, the number of places that were inserted into the body began to bleed. If it was only 1 or 2 places, probably Snake Shichiro would not care, but such a large area of bleeding at the same time, the whole glass tank began to change color. The situation is definitely not optimistic. "Langusia, has this situation happened before?" Lin Yi was shocked but not panicked, still maintained enough calm, and immediately grasped the key problem. "No, this situation has never happened before." Langusia's voice was a little panicked. After all, among the sea beasts, he is only a teenager. Chapter 56-35. What should I do? What should I do? Snake Shichiro was in a panic. He was no longer as calm as he was when he first met Lin Yi. After all, Langusia had a good relationship with him, and he was also a member of the royal family. He could not be blamed for panicking out of concern. Lin Yi knew that he could not count on Snake Shichiro to make a decision now. If he allowed Langusia to continue bleeding, this guy would probably die here. Although Lin Yi had saved Langusia according to the agreement, and even if Langusia died now, there was nothing he could do. But after all, he was in front of Lin Yi. If he did not take any measures, Lin Yi would feel guilty. "Get out of the way!" Lin Yi shouted and pushed Snake Shichiro and Yu Yi aside. Then, he punched the glass jar. To Lin Yi's surprise, this punch, which contained a lot of genuine qi, did not shake the glass jar at all. It was obvious that the material was definitely not ordinary glass. With no time to think, Lin Yi punched again. This time, his fist was wrapped in a layer of 5 elements murderous qi. Finally, the glass jar was successfully broken. The liquid inside rushed out in an instant, tearing the broken hole. Langusia also rushed out with the water. Lin Yi did not care about his wet clothes. He directly reached out to support Langusia. He turned his hand and took out some healing elixirs. He crushed them for external application and smeared them on Langusia's body. It was easier to take them for internal application. He just asked Langusia to open his mouth and throw them in. Because he was not sure if it was effective, Lin Yi did not dare to pull out all the things at once. He just smeared healing elixirs on the fallen parts when he rushed out. Unfortunately, the effect was minimal. Although almost all of Lin Yi's elixirs were of the best quality, after the elixirs took effect, the wounds just showed signs of healing, but they split again as if there was an invisible force stopping the elixirs. Why is this happening? Why can't your pills even stop the bleeding? Snake Shichiro had been watching with hope as Lin Yi healed Langusia, but now he was once again thrown into confusion. Langusia twitched violently a few times, then suddenly burst into tears. After all, he was only a teenager. When he felt that death was about to befall him, he could no longer endure the heart-wrenching fear. "Snake Shichiro, I don't want to die. Save me." Langusia cried loudly, but it was obvious that there was an unconcealable weakness in his voice. Snake Shichiro had a bitter look on his face. He thought to himself, you don't want to die, but I don't want to die either. He had clearly saved her, but she had died right in front of him. Being buried with her was not something that could be casually said. Lin brothers, do you have any ideas? Hurry up and save him. Snake Shichiro was really anxious. Originally, saving Languja was definitely a great credit. It was not a big deal if he could not save him, and it would not affect him, Snake Shichiro. However, Languja had clearly been saved, but he died in front of Snake Shichiro in the end. This matter was a little unclear. There was no such thing as harmony among the oceanic beasts. The strong preyed on the weak, and looting a burning house was the fundamental rule. Although they had a good relationship, and although they were somewhat related, no one would believe it. Lin Yi frowned slightly. Languja's current situation was not very good. Elixirs were no longer of any use, and the only chance was Lin Yi's all-purpose vital energy. I can give it a try, but I can't guarantee the result. Lin Yi chose to help in the end. After all, Languja gave Lin Yi a good feeling, and Snake Shichiro could be considered to have helped Lin Yi a lot before. Snake Shichiro was immediately overjoyed. When Lin Yi said that he could give it a try, he was like a drowning man who had grabbed onto his last life-saving straw. He quickly nodded and said, Lin brothers, go ahead and try. No matter the result, I, Snake Shichiro, will remember the benefits you've given me, Lin brothers. When Languja heard that Lin Yi might have a way, he stopped crying and looked nervously at Lin Yi, not hiding the hope in his eyes. Lin Yi estimated that Languja would not be able to hold on for long, so he no longer hesitated and said to Snake Shichiro, then I will bring Languja to a quiet room to heal him. Snake Shichiro, you and Yu Yi will guard me outside. Snake Shichiro wanted to say that he could heal Languja here, and no one would dare to disturb him. However, he resisted in the end. After all hope was now on Lin Yi, and Snake Shichiro did not dare to make Lin Yi unhappy. Lin brothers, you'll have to work hard. Hurry up and find a quiet room. Snake Shichiro was also tactful. He immediately summoned a huge crab and asked it to carry Languja on its back. Then, it followed behind Lin Yi to find a quiet room. There were many houses in ruined town, so there was no need to look for one. There were empty rooms on the side. Lin Yi just did not want others to see him healing Languja, so there was nothing to be picky about. After Lin Yi brought Languja into the empty room, Yu Yi and Snake Shichiro guarded on both sides like two door gods. Whether it was sea beasts or humans, they were all driven far away. They even set up a layer of divine sense defense to block possible divine sense spying. The blood flow of Languja's wound slowed down a little, but it was not because his injury was getting better. On the contrary, this was the inevitable result of Languja's body losing too much blood. When the blood completely stopped flowing, it would be the time when Languja was completely finished. Lin Yi pressed his hand on Languja's thick body with a solemn expression, continuously transferring the all-purpose vital energy to him. However, the all-purpose vital energy, which had always been successful, could not heal Languja's wound this time. What is this thing? Why is it so stubbornly obstructing the recovery of the wound? Lin Yi frowned slightly. The all-purpose vital energy was effective, but there was a strange force hovering around all of Languja's wounds. Although the all-purpose vital energy could repair the wound, it would soon be destroyed by the strange force. Because the process of repairing the damage was too fast, there seemed to be no abnormality on the surface. It was as if Lin Yi's treatment did not work. Fortunately, after the all-purpose vital energy entered Languja's body, the consumption of the bleeding was offset by more than half. Languja did not continue to weaken, and he finally recovered a little bit of spirit. Lin brothers, I, Languja, sincerely thank you for saving me. Languja raised his big head and said to Lin Yi gratefully, I heard that you humans will recognize the person you respect as your boss and follow his orders. If you can save my life this time, I, Languja, am willing to recognize you as my boss. Chapter 56-36. It did not seem to be a bad thing if he could have a sea beast royal as a younger brother. At least if he wanted the sea beasts Niden, he should not need to hunt them himself. He could just ask for some directly. Lin Yi was really a little tempted by Languja's sudden proposal, so Lin Yi could not let anything happen to Languja. After thinking carefully for a while, Lin Yi probed Languja's body with his divine sense. At the same time, he did not forget to warn Languja, "Don't resist my divine sense. Otherwise, both of us will be in trouble." "Okay, I'll listen to you." Languja agreed straightforwardly before withdrawing all of his soul into his primordial spirit. He entered a dormant state with his primordial spirit. "It's really thorough." Lin Yi smiled slightly. Languja could indeed completely avoid interfering with Lin Yi's actions by doing this, but in this way, it was equivalent to entrusting his life to Lin Yi. If Lin Yi had any bad intentions, he could easily do something to Languja's body. However, Languja's trust was also a responsibility for Lin Yi, so Lin Yi once again increased the intensity of his divine sense in Languja's body to thoroughly explore Languja's physical condition. "It's more serious than I expected." Lin Yi sighed softly and frowned more deeply. Just now, Lin Yi's attention was attracted by the many wounds on the surface of Languja's body, so he did not notice that in Languja's body, there were signs of collapse at the genetic level. If it were not for Lin Yi's super strong divine sense, he might not have been able to find these signs. If his guess was right, it should be the sequelae left by the potion that forcibly enhanced Languja's strength, and now it broke out. The omnipotent qi could repair the symptoms of this collapse, but it could not stop the continued destruction of the strange force. If this strange force could not be eliminated, even with the endless qi in the jade pendant space as a support, Languja would not be able to escape the fate of the physical collapse in the end. Lin Yi glanced at Languja, whose eyes were closed. He thought to himself that whether or not Languja would be able to live would really depend on his character. He hoped that his character was still passable as a beast. Lin Yi, who already had a plan in mind, carefully divided the divine sense that invaded Languja's body into an extremely subtle trace, and then directly transformed this trace of divine sense into the spiritual awareness pillfire, and brazenly rushed into the strange force that was wreaking havoc at the genetic level of Languja. Because the qi had no effect on these strange forces, Lin Yi had no choice but to take a risk and use the spiritual awareness pillfire to try to attack these strange forces. Fortunately, Languja believed in Lin Yi and directly absorbed the power of his divine sense into his soul. There was no residue on his body, so Lin Yi's spiritual awareness pillfire would not accidentally hurt Languja's soul and divine sense. Lin Yi's face showed a dignified expression. Although it was only an extremely small trace of the spiritual awareness pillfire, he still needed to pay a great deal of attention to control it, lest this spiritual awareness pillfire could not achieve anything and instead become an accomplice of those strange forces. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yi smiled as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. That trace of spirit elixir fire, under his control, easily broke into the strange energy and burned away the strange energy that was 6 to 7 times its size. Overall, this number was completely a drop in the ocean, but it represented that Lin Yi's choice was correct. "Your beast seems to be good, it is possible to recover in a short time." Lin Yi relaxed and said to Languja with a rare smile. As for whether Languja could hear it or not, it did not matter. Since he'd found a way, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't drag things out. He increased the input of his consciousness, and within a controllable range, he created the most amount of consciousness elixir fire he could muster at once, charging straight at the strange energy within Languja's body. Immediately after the spiritual awareness pillfire was the omnipotent Shen Qi that Lin Yi injected. In the front, the spiritual awareness pillfire swept and killed all the enemies, attacked the city and plundered the land, and the omnipotent Shen Qi cleaned the battlefield and repaired the city wall. Under the control of Lin Yi, the two forces cooperated with each other extremely well. It was because of the omnipotent Shen Qi that Lin Yi had a lot less to worry about. Even if the spiritual awareness pillfire accidentally hurt a little meridian in Languja's body, it would be repaired immediately. After half an hour, the collapse of Languja's genes had completely disappeared. After being repaired and nourished by the omnipotent Shen Qi, Languja's genes could be said to have been completely reborn. Originally, he had a strong physique of the sea beast royal family. Now, there was a trace of mutation, and he was much stronger than before. It could be said that this was a blessing in disguise. As for the injuries on the body surface, it was easier to deal with them. Without the source of the strange forces in the deep layer, The forces on the surface of the wounds could not resist Lin Yi's attack and were soon completely removed. All the wounds were also completely healed under the repair of Lin Yi's omnipotent Shen Qi. It's finally done. It's really tiring. Lin Yi withdrew his divine sense and Zhen Qi and could not help but let out a long sigh. The Zhen Qi was replenished by the space of the jade pendant, so it was not a big deal. However, in terms of divine sense, Lin Yi had to supply all of it himself. Moreover, he had to spend a lot of time and effort to carry out fine control. An ordinary person would not be able to persist. Ha 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 ha. That's awesome. You're really cured. After the soul of Languja was awakened by Lin Yi, he immediately felt the condition of his body and laughed excitedly. Then, Languja remembered who was the reason why he was able to survive. He immediately turned his head to Lin Yi and said, "You really saved me, so from now on, you're my, Languja's, big brother. As long as big brother needs it, Languja will go through fire and water for big brother." Lin Yi faintly smiled and said, "If you insist, I don't mind. However, I have a lot of little brothers, and you're not the biggest one. So, you have to be mentally prepared." Languja laughed and said, "Big brother, you're so powerful that you must be the king of the sea beasts in the human race. It's normal for you to have a lot of little brothers. It would be strange if you didn't have any. Big brother, don't worry, I, Languja, know my limits." "Well, I'm also very happy that you can say that. There's one more thing to remind you. This time, it can be considered as a blessing in disguise. From the early nascent soul stage to the early profound ascension stage, and because of my treatment, while stabilizing your strength, there are also some changes. As for whether this change is good or bad, you need to study it yourself. So, after you go back, it's best for you to go into seclusion for a period of time." Lin Yi had always taken care of his little brothers, but Languja was already at the early profound ascension stage. Lin Yi couldn't help him in terms of strength, so he could only tell Languja what he had just observed. Chapter 56-37. Languja put away his smile and nodded vigorously. "I know, boss, don't worry, I know what to do. In our Sea Dragon clan, only the most outstanding geniuses can advance to the profound ascension stage when they reach adulthood. Now I have advanced to the profound ascension stage before I reach adulthood. This is all thanks to boss. If I, Languja, still don't know how to cherish it, then I'm sorry boss." Lin Yi was shocked. From Languja's words, Lin Yi could infer that there was a profound ascension stage existence in the Sea Dragon clan. But this was not surprising. After all, Snake Shichiro was already at the Yuanying stage, so it was not surprising that there was a profound ascension stage existence in the Sea Dragon clan. Fortunately, this time they did not become enemies with the sea beasts of the Endless Sea. Otherwise, if they provoked the Sea Dragon clan, the ancient small Jianghu would be wiped out in minutes. After all, the Sea Dragon clan was also a creature that could move on land. But why did the masters of the Sea Dragon clan never appear? Otherwise, the profound ascension stage would not be a legend of the ancient small Jianghu for thousands of years. It's good that you understand. Go out first, or else Snake Shichiro will be anxious. Although Lin Yi wanted to ask about the Sea Dragon clan, this was already a secret of the Languja clan. It was not good for Lin Yi to inquire about it, so he could only put it aside for now. Languja nodded and followed Lin Yi out of the room. When Snake Shichiro saw Languja behind Lin Yi, he immediately rushed up excitedly and laughed. "Good boy, I knew you were lucky, nothing will happen to you." "That's right, who do you think I, Languja, am?" Of course, there was also Boss Lin Yi's heaven-defying methods. "That was how he managed to save my life," Languja said proudly and immediately started bragging about Lin Yi. Snake Shichiro was stunned. "You've acknowledged Lin Yi as your boss. He didn't force you, did he?" At this point, Snake Shichiro looked at Lin Yi in an unfriendly manner. Although Lin Yi was Languja's savior, if Lin Yi used this as a threat and forcefully accepted a member of the Oceanic Beast clan as a subordinate, he would be looking down on and provoking the Oceanic Beast clan. Languja snorted and said, "Snake Shichiro, what are you thinking? Of course, I, Languja, am willing to do it. Other than that, do you think anyone can force me to do something I don't want to do?" Snake Shichiro thought about it and agreed. He knew Languja's personality the best, so he looked at Lin Yi with an apologetic gaze. Lin Yi didn't care and waved his hand. If you have something to say, go back and talk. I still have some things to deal with. It's not very convenient for so many of your oceanic beast army to stay here. Languja hurriedly said, Boss, don't worry, I will make them withdraw immediately. But I still want to talk with you, boss. How about you let me stay here for a few more days? Before Lin Yi could speak, Snake Shichiro objected, No, this time we made such a big fuss because of you. If you don't go back, how can this matter be resolved? Hurry up and go back with me. Come back in 2 days. Languja thought about it and agreed. Although he wanted to spend a few more days with Lin Yi, Snake Shichiro's words also made sense. Languja could only say resentfully, Fine, go back, boss. I will come back to find you in 2 days. You will still be here, right? Lin Yi scratched his head. This was really hard to say. After the end of the immemorial grand meeting, all the sects would leave the ruined town. The ruined town would become a wasteland again. If Languja came here to find Lin Yi, he most likely wouldn't be able to find him. Languja saw that Lin Yi didn't speak, so he used his front claw to scratch his chin a few times. He took out a round bead the size of a pigeon egg and handed it to Lin Yi. Boss, this is the communication bead used by the oceanic beast kings. If you want to find me, you only need to put this bead into the water on any shore of the endless sea. I will receive the message. If I want to find you, I can also sense your position through this bead. This thing is not bad. I will accept it. Lin Yi didn't hesitate. With this communication bead, it would be convenient to find Languja in the future. He just didn't know if Languja could still sense Lin Yi's position if he put this thing into the space of the jade pendant. Snake Shichiro looked at Languja's claws and suddenly said, Languja, you are already at the early stage of mysterious ascension, right? Why didn't you transform? Or 2 claws? Languja retracted his claws and smiled, I am still a minor, so I am still a sea dragon. I don't know if when I become an adult and transform into a sea dragon, will I directly break through the mysterious ascension stage and enter the mountain opening stage? Don't bullshit. There has never been a super expert in the mountain opening stage among the royal family. You should think about when you can become a real sea dragon. Maybe you still have a chance. Snake Shichiro sneered. He didn't believe Languja at all. Lin Yi looked at Languja thoughtfully, finally understanding the strength of the royal sea beasts. Sea serpents were a race that could evolve. After reaching adulthood, there was a chance for them to evolve into sea serpents. Be it talent or strength, sea serpents were obviously far superior to sea serpents, but they still weren't true dragons. If 1 in 100 of the elites of the sea serpents could evolve into sea serpents, then only 1 in 1,000 sea serpents would have the chance to become a true sea dragon. In other words, if Languja wanted to evolve into a sea dragon, which could be considered a real dragon, the probability was 1 in 100,000. As for now, after the mutation, Lin Yi couldn't tell how much potential Languja had. Maybe it only needed 1 in 100 to become a sea dragon, or maybe it was less than 1 in a million. Languja and Snake Shichiro didn't notice Lin Yi's thoughts. After a few words, they said goodbye to Lin Yi. The sea beast royal family was still waiting for the report of this operation. Snake Shichiro didn't want to continue to delay, especially before the mission was completed. If there were any more mistakes, his little heart really couldn't bear it. Under the leadership of Languja and Snake Shichiro, the sea beast army quickly disappeared from the outskirts of the ruined town like a receding tide. Lin Yi asked Yu Yi to gather the 4 big and 10 young ones. After he left, Lin Yi still needed to confirm the results of the Archean convention. After a short while, all the 4 big and 10 kids gathered together again. Shin Yijie was the first to come and stand beside Lin Yi. Chapter 5638. Lin Yi asked in surprise, Didn't you announce it before? All the details have been done. Now it's time to announce the result. Everyone said that we can only proceed with the announcement after Grand Uncle Master arrives. Shin Yijie's words were full of pride. It was the glory of the Green Cloud sect that Lin Yi could gain the respect of all the sects. You don't mind the trouble. All right, hurry up and announce it. I have something to say. Lin Yi waved his hand, signaling Shin Ijie to announce it quickly. Shin Ijie agreed and turned to the audience. He held his head high and announced loudly, "Everyone, I, Shin Ijie, will now announce the new ranking of the 4 major sects and families." The audience below the stage cooperated and gave a round of applause. In this immemorial grand meeting, the power structure could be said to have undergone earth-shattering changes, and the biggest change was the strong ascension of the Azure Cloud sect, as well as the rise of the strongest dark horse, the Thousand Blades sect. Thinking that the Thousand Blades sect, one of the top 4 sects, only had 2 members, many people were excited. They wanted to join the Thousand Blades sect after the Archaeozoic Grand Meeting. The head of the top 4 sects and families is our Green Cloud sect. The second is the Shangguan clan, the third is the Thousand Blades sect, and the last is the 5 Elements sect. The division of guards in the Archaeozoic mountain range has been determined. From now on, the distribution of resources in the Archaeozoic underworld will be decided by the new top 4 sects. Thank you. After the simple announcement, Shin Ijie was ready to let Lin Yi speak. Because Lin Yi said he had something to say, Shin Ijie naturally wouldn't talk endlessly. However, Ma Zedong didn't know that Lin Yi had something to say. After hearing Shin Ijie's announcement, she proudly showed off to Tribulation Zhenren beside her. "Tribulation Zhenren, look at our 5 Elements sect, one of the top 4 sects. Do you want to join us in the future? With our friendship, I, Ma Zedong, will definitely help your Chenkuan sect." Ma Zedong was in a good mood. It was a pity that Qi Dezhe didn't come out because he colluded with the center. Otherwise, it would be even better to show off in front of Qi Dezhe. Daoist Dujie's face darkened. He snorted and said, "The 5 Elements sect fell from the 2nd place to the 4th place. What is there to be proud of? And you, this shameless fellow, actually using your identity as one of the big 4 to become Qingyun sect's little brother, even I feel ashamed for you. TSK, you're just envious, jealous, and hateful, right? No matter what, the 5 Elements sect is still one of the 4 great sects. Compared to your Chenkuan sect, which was originally the leader of the 4 great sects, the new 10 small sects are much stronger." Ma Zedong said indifferently. She had always thought that relying on Lin Yi and Jadian's sect was the smartest decision she had ever made, and from the current results, it was indeed very good. She's just a lackey of Lin Yi. What's there to be proud of? Sage Du Jie's face was full of disdain, but he was actually a little envious of Ma Zedong. "Unfortunately, you don't even have a chance." Ma Zedong laughed and said, "Haven't you heard? The Sea Beast King that Martial Granduncle Lin Yi saved just now all recognized our Martial Granduncle as their boss. How awe-inspiring. Who else in the ancient small world can compare with him?" The members of the royal Sea Beast clan had all become Lin Yi's underlings. Ma Zedong felt that not only was her decision not wrong, but it was also a super far-sighted golden idea. There was still a big gap between the members of the 5 Elements sect and the members of the royal Sea Beast clan, but because of Lin Yi, everyone was on the same level. Sage Du Jie also received the news. Although he wasn't sure, there might be a reason for it, so he didn't speak for a while. Seeing that Sage Du Jie had nothing to say, Ma Zedong was even more proud and continued to show off. "Do you understand? Martial Granduncle Lin Yi won't accept just anyone. For example, someone like you, who has no status and no skills. Martial Granduncle is too lazy to care about you. Let's not talk about the Sea Beast King, but the alchemy ability of our 5 Elements sect is beyond your reach. Do you understand?" Sage Du Jie simply turned his head and ignored Ma Zedong. If he let him show off alone, he would probably get bored after a while. Lin Yi saw it clearly from the stage and was speechless. This Ma Zedong, he didn't know how to describe him. However, seeing Ma Zedong being so obedient, Lin Yi thought of his own batch of Sea Beast cores. Most of them were Golden Core Stage Sea Beast cores. After taking out 360 Golden Core Stage Sea Beast cores to exchange for the Spirit Jade quota, there were still more than 1,000 Golden Core Stage Sea Beast cores left, which were suitable for 5 Elements sect to make Golden Core. Since 5 Elements sect was sincere, Lin Yi naturally had to make good use of their resources. When he got back, Lin Yi was prepared to teach 5 Elements sect alchemy skills. This way, their success rate and quality would improve. After all, Lin Yi had Zhongliju's alchemy notes. In this aspect, there were many similarities. Ma Zedden, quiet, I'll talk to you about alchemy later. For now, listen to something important. Lin Yi pointed at Ma Zedden faintly, and Ma Zedden immediately cupped her fists and bowed respectfully, as if she was all ears. Then, Ma Zedden took the opportunity when Lin Yi wasn't paying attention and looked at Sage Du Jie proudly. Her eyes were full of hints. See, Grandmaster Lin Yi still needs me for something, right? You guys can't do it, right? He wouldn't want you even if you sent yourself to him. Lin Yi coughed and ignored Ma Zedden's actions. He took out the little flag that Little Food Spirit gave him and opened it to the crowd. In the first round of the competition, I found a mechanism in the natural formation of the spirit jade vein. This is extremely important to the ancient Jianghu, so I'm going to tell you guys about it now. Hearing Lin Yi mention the spirit jade vein, after all, this was directly related to training resources. Who knew what Lin Yi was going to say? Lin Yi took out the speech he had prepared and continued, this mechanism can greatly increase the upper limit of the number of people who can enter the vein, as well as the time limit, but it's not without a price. The price is that you need to put in an inner core of a sea beast above the golden core stage in order to activate the mechanism. Senior Lin, may I know the exact number of people and time? Master Lin, how many golden core stage inner cores do you need? Grand Master. This must be a sect in the North Island Alliance. Chapter 5639. After all, although the inner elixirs of sea beasts were precious, the endless sea was so vast that it was still possible to hunt them. However, the Lingyu celestial vein was only open for 10 days a year, and only 20 people could enter at a time. The amount of spiritual jade's mind was too little to supply the entire ancient underworld. This was also the reason why there were so few masters in the ancient underworld. After all, cultivation was a competition of resources. Lin Yi raised his hand and gestured for the crowd to calm down. Everyone, please calm down and listen to me. The crowd suddenly quieted down. From this, it could be seen how high Lin Yi's prestige was now. Through this mechanism, the number of people entering the Lingyu celestial vein every year can be increased to 200, and the time limit is half a year. 360 inner elixirs of golden core stage sea beasts are required. If there are no inner elixirs of golden core stage sea beasts, 72 inner elixirs of original infant stage sea beasts can be used instead. From today onwards, the rules of entering the Lingyu celestial vein will change. The 4 big and 10 small sects will have a fixed quota, and the rest of the quota will be exchanged with the inner elixirs of sea beasts. Many people's eyes lit up. It was indeed good news to be able to exchange the inner elixirs of sea beasts for the opportunity to enter the Lingyu celestial vein, and it was not limited to the 4 big and 10 small sect. Lin Yi glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, the specific allocation of the quota and the distribution of the spiritual jades will be decided by the Jadian and the other 3 big and 4 big sects after a discussion. I won't say much about this. This was a little fake. Who didn't know that the Jadian had the final say in the 4 big sects? And the Jadian was Lin Yi's word. In other words, Lin Yi was the one making the final decision. Of course, no one dared to say this out loud. In fact, Lin Yi did not want to get involved in this. He sincerely hoped that Xin Yijie and the others could come up with a mature plan. After all, the ancient underworld would still be under them in the future. Lin Yi turned around and said to Xin Yijie. The latter nodded and ordered a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect to bring 360 gold core stage sea beasts inner boluses to Lin Yi. Lin Yi injected his innate qi into the small flag, causing the array pattern on the small flag to emit bursts of golden light. Then, he threw all 360 golden core stage sea beast cores into a black hole that appeared on the side of the small flag. After absorbing the sea monster's inner core, the black hole slowly became wider. The black light also slowly turned white, finally forming a teleportation gate. Lin Yi pointed at the portal and said, this year's sea beast cores will be provided by our Jadian sect. As the first trial, we don't need any sect to provide any cores, but the quota for each sect will be limited. By the way, you won't encounter any danger when you enter the Lingyu celestial vein through this teleportation gate, unless someone harms you maliciously. Once this situation is discovered, the person and the sect behind him will be permanently disqualified from entering the Lingyu celestial vein. If it was before the ancient grand meeting, the people below the stage would have already started whispering. But now that Lin Yi's prestige was high, the people below the stage tried their best not to say anything, for fear that they would lose the qualification to enter the Lingyu celestial vein. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He withdrew his innate qi and closed the teleportation gate. He rolled up the small flag and handed it to Xin Yijie. Then, he said to the people below the stage, after the teleportation gate is opened, people can be teleported in at any time within half a year. As long as the limit of 200 people is not exceeded, there will be no possibility of failure. When we have the quota allocation plan, we will let Xin Yijie handle it directly. After thinking for a while, it seemed that there was nothing more to say. Lin Yi directly waved his hand and said, "The ancient grand meeting is over. The following trade fairs and auctions will continue according to the previous arrangement. Everyone is dismissed." Xin Yijie was told to disperse, but as soon as Xin Yijie finished speaking, a large group of people surrounded him. They all wanted to get to know him first, so that they could get a head start in the fight for the free entry into Lingyu Immortal's vein. Lin Yi was speechless for a while. He thought to himself that it was fortunate that he had given the formation flag to Xin Yijie. Otherwise, it would be very uncomfortable for him to be surrounded. After leaving the crowd quickly, Lin Yi waved to Ma Zedong and said, "Ma Zedong, come here." Without saying a word, Ma Zedong ran over and bowed with a smile on his face. He said, "Grand Uncle, what can I do for you?" Lin Yi would not be polite to Ma Zedong. He directly said, "There is indeed something. How about this, after the ancient grand meeting is over, you come to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. I will write down some of my experiences and techniques of alchemy for you. Go back and study them carefully. Then, refine the remaining inner cores of the sea beasts in the gold core stage into golden cores. Do you understand?" "Understood. Grand Uncle, please rest assured." Ma Zedong was secretly happy. Lin Yi was going to put the Five Elements sect in an important position. Moreover, he was going to give them pointers on alchemy. Ma Zedong had heard from Master Chen about Lin Yi's alchemy level. It was absolutely incredible. To be able to get pointers from Lin Yi, he would really wake up from his dream with a smile. "Okay, you can go back. Discuss with Xin Yijie about the Spirit Jade Celestial Vein. I still have something to do. I will wait for you at the Green Cloud sect in the North Island." Lin Yi waved his hand to indicate that Ma Zedong could leave. Ma Zedong quickly cupped his fists and bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Grand Uncle. I will rush to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island as soon as possible." To be honest, Ma Zedong could not wait to ask Lin Yi for advice on alchemy. However, Lin Yi had something to do. Ma Zedong could not help it. He could only plan to wait at the Green Cloud sect in the North Island after saying goodbye to Xin Yijie. Lin Yi found Yu Yi, Primordial Invincible, and Shangguan Feixing, the three experts in the early stage of the mysterious Ascension realm. They sat on the flying spirit beast and flew to Q Luo Mountain again. After rescuing the blue dragon, Lin Yi was still not assured about Da Feng's safety. Therefore, he wanted to confirm it again. He brought the three people with him so that he could have some help in the battle. At least, they could play a role in restraining the enemy. By the time they got to Q Luo Mountain, the central base was already in ruins. Other than the destruction Lin Yi had caused, the Glasses Doctor had probably cleaned up the place after he came back as well. There was nothing of value left. Lin Yi's divine sense swept the entire base, searching inch by inch. He was afraid of seeing Da Feng's body. Fortunately, there was no such result in the end. Instead, he found a message left by Da Feng in a secret code. Chapter 5640. Knowing that Da Feng was fine, Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. As for leaving the ancient underworld, Lin Yi was also quite happy. At least the ancient underworld could have a relatively quiet period of development. At this time, the matters of the ancient underworld had basically come to an end. Lin Yi could finally go back to Heaven Stage Island with peace of mind. To be honest, he really missed Heaven Stage Island. Since there was nothing left in Q Luo Mountain, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't stay any longer. He directly let Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feixing return to Ruined Town to meet up with the people from their sects, while Lin Yi took Yu Yi back to the Blue Cloud sect in the north first. On the way, Lin Yi decided to first tell Yu Yi about his departure, so he controlled the flying spirit beast to fly beside Yu Yi. Yu Yi, I should be leaving the ancient underworld in 2 days. At that time, you will stay in the Blue Cloud sect in the north and guard it for me. If there is a problem you can't solve, ask Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feishing for help. Both of them are stronger than you and will be very good reinforcements. Lin Yi said calmly. However, Yu Yi felt that Lin Yi was giving him a warning. Master, where are you going? Why don't you take Yu Yi with you? Yu Yi will definitely take care of everything for Master. Yu Yi's face was full of hypocrisy and he pretended to ask to take him with him. In fact, Yu Yi's heart was already blooming with joy. Wahahaha, this little bastard Lin Yi wants to leave the ancient underworld. Then won't I be free? I don't know where this little bastard is going. It's best if he doesn't come back in the future. After he leaves here, should I first take over the Blue Cloud sect? Forget it, after Lin Yi leaves, I will be the boss of the Blue Cloud sect. I don't need to take over so obviously. After all, Lin Yi will definitely arrange for Primordial Invincible and Shangguan Feishing to monitor me. Yu Yi thought a little too much, but he maintained the hypocritical expression on his face very well. Lin Yi smiled faintly and did not pay attention to Yu Yi. Anyway, Lin Yi would not reveal the matter of Heaven Stage Island to Yu Yi for the time being. It was best for him to stay and take care of the Blue Cloud sect. Now Yu Yi, who had the primordial spirit, was no longer a small puppet in the secular world. He could judge all favorable opportunities on his own, and he could also move and cultivate freely. With him, the Green Cloud sect in the North Island was still very safe. As for Yu Yi's plan to completely get rid of Lin Yi after he became stronger, it was simply impossible. As Lin Yi's puppet, when Lin Yi wanted to kill him, he only needed to think about it. When Lin Yi brought Yu Yi back to the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island, the Archean auction in the ruined town was not over yet, so Shinijie and the others had not returned. Fortunately, Wu Chentian and the others were practicing in the sect and had not seen Lin Yi for a while. When they heard that he was back, they immediately ended their practice and came out to meet him. The scene was very lively for a while. After introducing Yu Yi to these people that Lin Yi brought from the secular world, this guy immediately got along well with Wu Chentian and the others. He bragged a little and the atmosphere became more and more lively. Although Yu Yi did not participate in Lin Yi's entire trip to the Archean auction, he spent half a day in the ruined town and knew everything about Lin Yi. Although his goal was to understand Lin Yi and find a chance to get rid of his control, it was just right for him to brag to these brothers of Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head, not caring about them. He was not a person who liked to talk and brag, so naturally, he had no interest in participating. He turned back to look at Lingshan, who was looking at him tenderly and affectionately. Lin Yi smiled faintly and used qi to communicate. Silly girl, do you feel like you want to eat me when you look at me like that? Lingshan blushed, knowing that Lin Yi was talking to her alone. She looked at him with a mixture of annoyance and happiness, but nodded firmly. What he meant was, silly girl wants to eat you, do you dare let me eat you? Lin Yi felt a little awkward. At his current level, he didn't have to worry about what happened after a man and a woman were in love, but he still had so many girlfriends. Meng Yarrow and the other girls were still unconscious. If he did something with someone else, he'd feel like he'd let Meng Yarrow and the others down. It was because of this little obsession in his heart that Lin Yi didn't have a deeper relationship with any of his women after reaching his current level. In actuality, Lin Yi wasn't someone who took the initiative, and was a bit shy as well. People like him. He suddenly remembered the first time he came down the mountain to Meng Yao's house, when Yushu caught him wiping his snot. Thinking of Meng Yarrow and Yushu, Lin Yi's heart felt heavy. His strength was enough to dominate the entire ancient Jianghu, but it wasn't much on Sky-class Island. He didn't know when he'd be able to see Zhong Liju again. Lingshan was preparing to have a good talk with Lin Yi. After all, they'd been apart a lot, and it wasn't easy for them to come to the ancient Jianghu. Lin Yi had been running around everywhere, but there were other girls around him. Ziyu and Lin Yi didn't seem to have a clear relationship, but the girl was all grown up now, and her feelings for Lin Yi weren't that pure anymore. As expected, Ziyu skipped over to Lin Yi and reached out to pinch his face. Lin Yi bro, why are you gone for so long? We were in isolation before, and you didn't even wake us up when you came back. If we didn't come out now, we wouldn't be able to see you, right? I heard you're going back to Sky Class Island. Can you take us there? You guys can't go. Just stay here and train. I'll be back. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he stroked Ziyu's hair lovingly. This girl was becoming more and more beautiful, and it was hard for Lin Yi to put his finger on her, but he'd just have to take it one step at a time. Oh. But can't we go back to the common world? Ziyu didn't have any interest in staying here. She liked crowds. You guys can go back, as long as you have enough spirit jade. We don't lack spirit jade here. Lin Yi really didn't lack spirit jade now, and there would only be more and more of them in the ancient Jianghu. If you guys want to go back after I leave, just get Xin Yijie to activate the formation. Alright, go back to Sky Class Island then, but be careful, come visit us often. Ziyu didn't want him to leave. Chapter 5641. I miss Chen Shi. Ziyu's eyes reddened. There's been no news of her, and I'm pretty worried. You should try to find her as soon as possible when you get to Sky Class Island. I will. Lin Yi sighed softly. He still had a couple of girls missing from Sky Class Island, and he didn't know where they went. It was time to go back and look for them. Chikuan and Chijio couldn't interrupt, either, and could only giggle. Their strength had been increasing really fast recently, and they were really happy. Lingshan, on the other hand, waited patiently for Ziyu to finish. She was a little sister, after all, and she had to let her have her way. But, just as they were talking, a Blue Cloud disciple came running in. Master, the head of Five Elements sect, Ma Zedong, and their refiner, Master Chen, are here to see you. Lin Yi paused. Already? Why aren't Xin Yijie and the others back yet? Lingshan didn't have any good feelings towards this Ma Zedong or whatever Five Elements sect. As expected, Five Elements sect didn't have anything good. The common world was like this, and the ancient Jianghu was like this as well. It wasn't easy for her to talk to Lin Yi, so where did these troublemakers come from? Lin Yi saw that Lingshan was about to go berserk as well, and smiled as he held her hand. These two are refiners from the ancient Jianghu, let's go see them together. Sure. Lingshan felt Lin Yi's warm and strong hand, and that little bit of unhappiness disappeared. A sweet smile appeared on her face as she nodded. As long as she could be with Lin Yi, she would be very happy. Right, is there any news of my sister, Song Lingrui? I miss her too. Lingshan said softly. Lin Yi fell silent after hearing Ziyu mention Lin Yi, and held her hand lightly. Don't worry, she'll be fine. I'll bring them back when I get back. Lingshan was a little disappointed, but there was nothing she could do about it. She didn't say anything else after that. Ziyu saw Lin Yi and Lingshan walk out hand in hand, and a slight disappointment flashed in her eyes. She turned around and went back to bragging with Yu Yi and the others, so Lin Yi didn't notice that at all. As far as Ziyu was concerned, she'd occupied Lin Yi for too long already. She'd just let Lingshan have this time. In the guest hall of the Green Cloud sect, Ma Zedong and Master Chen stood respectfully while waiting for Lin Yi. They had no intention of sitting down. Clearly, they were very used to the change in their identities. Seeing Lin Yi and Lingshan come out, the two immediately cupped their fists and bowed. Ma Zedong greets Master Lin. Greetings, Martial Grandaunt's wife. Lingshan felt a sweetness in her heart. She felt that it was a bit of a mouthful to call her Grandmaster's wife, but since she was Lin Yi's wife, she didn't have to fuss about it. Even her impression of this Ma Zedong and Chen Biden changed a little. This was the first time Lin Yi heard of Master Chen's name, so it was Chen Biden. What a mouthful, no wonder he always called him Master. After signaling for Lingshan to sit beside the main seat, Lin Yi waved his hand, sit down and talk. The two of them expressed their gratitude and sat down respectfully. Chen Biden thought for a moment and stood up. She cupped her fists and bowed. Uncle Master Lin, I have offended you before. Please punish me. I've already forgotten what happened in the past. What's there to punish? Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand casually. Sit down, we've all been serving different masters before, that's all. From now on, we're one family, no need to talk like that. Thank you for your magnanimity, Master Lin. Chen Biden's face was full of gratitude. After bowing again, she sat back on the chair and said, to be honest, ever since I saw Marshal Granduncle's alchemy skills for the first time, I've been yearning for Marshal Granduncle. Thanks to sect leader Ma's wisdom, I have the opportunity to ask Marshal Granduncle for alchemy skills. Ma Zedong was proud of himself in his heart. He deeply believed Chen Biden's words, but he put on a stern expression on his face and said, Elder Chen, this time Master Granduncle is magnanimous and won't fuss over it with you. But you should remember this lesson. If something similar happens again, don't blame me, Ma Zedong, for being impolite. Yes, Master Ma is right. Chen Biden nodded humbly, not at all like the arrogance Lin Yi had when they first met. Although Master Lin forgave you, and I can't punish you anymore, I'll remember this mistake. In the future, listen to Master Lin's teachings and do things for Master Lin to make up for your mistakes. Do you understand? Ma Zedong's words were blunt, but in fact, it was just to make Lin Yi feel more comfortable. After all, Lin Yi said that he didn't care about the past, but who knew if he really didn't care about it? If there were any knots left in his heart, it would always be a hidden danger. He might as well make it clear first, not only to let Lin Yi vent his anger, but also to completely wash away Chen Biden's impression in Lin Yi's heart. Lin Yi was naturally aware of Ma Zedong's intentions, so he immediately smiled faintly. Okay, I said that the past is in the past, so you don't have to worry about it. Yes, I will obey Master Lin's decree. Ma Zedong was completely relieved this time, knowing that Lin Yi really wouldn't find trouble with Chen Biden again. However, as she spoke, she became more and more respectful. Lin Yi thought that he was about to return to Heavenstep Island, and he didn't have much time to stay in the ancient small underworld. There were still many things to deal with, so he didn't want to beat around the bush with Ma Zedong and Chen Biden, so he directly said, this time, I called you here to exchange alchemy experiences with you. You should be mentally prepared, right? Ma Zedong and Chen Biden hurriedly waved their hands and said, we dare not, Master Lin is too polite. Disciple is here to learn, how can I be qualified to exchange with Master Lin? You don't have to be modest. To tell you the truth, my alchemy method is completely different from the alchemy methods of this era. It is the ancient alchemy method. Although some of the techniques are interlinked, it might not be able to help you much, so it's best that you don't have too much hope. Lin Yi was confident that Zhongliju's alchemy notes could help increase the success rate and quality of 5-element sect's alchemy, but of course, he couldn't be too confident. What if it was really useless? Chapter 5642. After a little hesitation, Ma Zedong carefully asked, Marshal Uncle, please allow this disciple to ask, what is the difference between your alchemy technique and ours? Don't tell me you don't use divine sense alchemy fire. This time it was Lin Yi's turn to be surprised. How could there be people in the ancient Jianghu who knew that alchemy fire was not something that could be condensed with divine sense? When he first came to the ancient Jianghu, he didn't know that there was such a thing as divine sense alchemy fire. Chinese novels. Seeing the surprised expression on Lin Yi's face, Ma Zedong and Chen Biden immediately became excited. Chen Biden rushed to ask, Marshal Uncle, did you really master the legendary True Qi attribute alchemy fire? Lin Yi couldn't help but be speechless. True Qi attribute alchemy fire was already a legendary technique in the ancient Jianghu. There were many records in the secular world, right? Although it wasn't to the extent of being common, it was just a little better than common, right? Speaking of which, the 5 Elements sect of the secular world and the 5 Elements Chamber of Commerce of the Heavenstep Island did not produce any alchemy experts. There should be some connection between them and the 5 Elements sect of the ancient Jianghu. This connection might be traced back to the Heavenstep Island. Was the inheritance of the divine sense alchemy fire and the true Qi alchemy fire separated? Why are you so excited? Lin Yi asked in confusion. From his point of view, although the pure Qi alchemy fire could be divided into different attributes, the spirit alchemy fire was basically a general type of alchemy fire without attributes. However, there didn't seem to be any difference between the two. This could be most directly reflected in the super alchemy fire bomb. After becoming a bomb, the power of the two alchemy fires was actually the same, Ma Zedong took a deep breath, calmed her emotions and said, "Martial uncle, don't you know? Our ancient Zhenghu's divine sense alchemy fire is actually incomplete. Although it can be used for alchemy, it is said that it can only be used to refine profound level 1 pills. It's just that there is no profound level 1 alchemist in the current ancient Zhenghu, so there is no way to verify this legend. Grand Martial Uncle, sect leader Ma is right. Because the divine sense pill fire is flawed, although the upper limit of alchemy cannot be verified, the success rate of alchemy is enough to prove this problem. In fact, in the records of alchemy, the success rate of alchemy should not be so low. The main reason is the lack of a true qi attribute alchemic fire, Chen Biden said excitedly. Originally, he was worried whether Lin Yi's superb alchemy skills would be suitable for him, but now there was no need to worry about it. If Lin Yi really mastered the method of condensing the true qi dan fire, then as long as he found a way to integrate the divine sense dan fire, he could immediately double the level of alchemy. Lin Yi patted his forehead, feeling a little annoyed in his heart. All along, he had used 2 kinds of pill fires to create super pill firebombs, but he had never thought that in fact, the spiritual pill fire and the true qi pill fire could be completely fused together to refine pills. After all, the spiritual pill fire did not have an attribute, and any attribute of the true qi pill fire could be integrated into the spiritual pill fire without any hindrance. In this way, the problem of Lin Yi being unable to refine pills for a long time could be solved. After all, Lin Yi had no problem condensing any pill fire. The only obstacle was changing the temperature and intensity of the pill fire. After having the experience of controlling the direction of explosion of the super pill firebomb, Lin Yi felt that after adding the spiritual pill fire, there was a great chance to overcome the previous difficulties. If it were not for Ma Zedong and Chen Biden, Lin Yi would have already tried it on the spot. In this case, I will first teach you some simple mnemonics to condense the true qi dan fire. After you have figured it out, I will give you some alchemy experience. If you can successfully integrate the 2 kinds of pill fires, it can be regarded as finding a new possibility for the development of the small Zhenghu in ancient times. As he spoke, Lin Yi stood up and walked to the side of the desk. He picked up the pen and paper that he had asked someone to prepare earlier and quickly copied down some of the methods of condensing the true qi dan fire. These weren't the things in Zhongleju's notes, but some scattered records that Lin Yi had collected on Sky-class Island. It was much better than the common world's, but still not as good as Zhongleju's. Lin Yi didn't know what Zhongleju thought about teaching him the methods of refining the true qi dan fire, so he usually wouldn't take out Zhongleju's notes if he could substitute them. Ma Zedong and Chen Biden looked at each other. They knew that Lin Yi was copying down the methods of condensing the true qi dan fire from the legends, and all of a sudden, they felt an itch in their hearts, but they didn't dare walk behind Lin Yi to look, afraid that they would make Lin Yi unhappy. They could only keep twisting their bodies, as if the chair they were sitting on was full of nails. After a while, Lin Yi came back with 2 or 3 pages of paper and handed it to Ma Zedong. The paper was thin, but it made Ma Zedong feel as if it weighed 1,000 kilograms. She raised her trembling hands to receive it. "Thank you, Grand Master." Ma Zedong glanced at it and immediately thanked Lin Yi solemnly. Chen Biden followed beside Ma Zedong and bowed solemnly, expressing her gratitude to Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand nonchalantly. "The fact that you guys can understand it is the best way to thank me. Start studying it now, I'll go write down some more notes and give them to you later." Ma Zedong and Chen Biden were overjoyed and thanked him again. After suppressing their excitement, they started studying Lin Yi's handwritten notes. They realized that Lin Yi's notes were all methods of forming true qi dan fire, and so they took one each and started reading. Lin Yi didn't bother with them anymore and turned around to write down some notes and tips. It was still the stuff he collected on Sky-class Island, and it was no problem to give it to Ma Zedong and the others. After he was done, Lin Yi realized that Lingshan had been sitting quietly on the chair the whole time, watching Lin Yi's every move with a gentle gaze. Lin Yi put down his pen and smiled. "What's wrong with you today? You seem a little different from before." Lingshan shook her head with a smile. "Silly girl is still a silly girl, I just want to look at you a few more times. Otherwise you'll be going back to Sky-class Island soon." Lin Yi paused, not expecting Lingshan to say something like that. But it seemed that his conversation with Chen Shi had touched on Lingshan's sensitive side, making her so gentle. Chapter 56-43. Lingshan wanted to say something, but remembered that there were two outsiders here. She turned her head and didn't say anything. In actuality, Ma Zedong and Chen Biden were in a state where they'd forgotten themselves. There was nothing else in their minds other than the refinement fire. Not to mention the fact that Lingshan was just talking to Lin Yi in a whisper. Even if she were to take a gong and bang it in their ears, it wouldn't attract their attention. Lin Yi turned his head to look at Ma Zedong and Chen Biden. He found that these two guys were really talented in alchemy. In such a short time, they had already successfully formed a type of alchemy fire. Ma Zedong's alchemy fire was fire, while Chen Biden's alchemy fire was wood. They could already control the temperature and strength of the alchemy fire. This made Lin Yi especially envious. Success. It really is a chi element refinement fire. With this refinement fire, the quality and success rate of my refinement will increase greatly, Ma Zedong exclaimed excitedly after controlling the fire in her hand. Chen Biden wasn't far behind either. She followed suit and said something similar. Lin Yi smiled. You two are indeed masters of alchemy. To be able to grasp the method in such a short time, it's a cause for celebration. In fact, this kind of basic method was originally a simple entry-level method. It was just like some brain teasers. Those who didn't know would never understand it, but once someone said the answer, everyone would have a feeling of sudden enlightenment and feel that it was actually so simple. Ma Zedong and Chen Biden had this feeling. They were trapped in a room before, and all they could see was the things in the room. Lin Yi was like the person who pushed open a window, letting them realize that there was such a vast world and endless scenery outside. It's all thanks to the guidance of the Grand Master. Otherwise us brothers would have been frogs in the well forever. We didn't know that there was such a whole new world in refinement. Ma Zedong sincerely bowed to Lin Yi. If it could be said that Ma Zedong was forced to rely on Lin Yi because of Lin Yi's strength back in the archaic meeting, then she was completely convinced now. It wasn't just because Lin Yi had taught them the way to form the pure chi attribute pellet fire, but also because of Lin Yi's selflessness in the art of pelletization. If it were Ma Zedong and the others, they wouldn't have so easily taught their own pelletization skills to others. What they didn't know was that Lin Yi really hadn't taught them the best of Zhongliju skills. Lin Yi looked at the chi refinement fire in their hands and felt it before speaking. This is just a normal chi refinement fire. Have you tried merging it with the spirit refinement fire? Chen Biden glanced at Ma Zedong and said shamefully, reporting to Grand Master, this disciple has tried but was completely unable to grasp the gist of it. It seems that there is still a long way to go before I can successfully use the fusion of two kinds of pill fires to refine pills. Ma Zedong nodded in agreement. The two obviously couldn't merge the two refinement fires in one go. Lin Yi had a lot of experience in this area, but the problem was that his experience was only suitable for super refinement firebombs, so it wasn't convenient for him to talk about it. As for demonstrating it on the spot, it was even more impossible. They couldn't even control the temperature and strength of the refinement fire. Wouldn't they just embarrass themselves? Ian, you guys study it well. The flag of refinement in the Archean martial world will depend on you guys from now on. Lin Yi nodded with the air of a grandmaster, and after a few words of encouragement, he gave the two of them the experience he had prepared. Grandmaster, you're too courteous. With you here, the flag of refinement will never belong to us brothers. Ma Zedong took the thin stack of papers and smiled so widely that her eyes couldn't be seen. She was still complimenting Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't explain much and waved his hand to let them go. Anyway, they would naturally know that Lin Yi had left the Archean martial world in the future. However, with Yu Yi, Primordial Invincible, and Shangguan Feixing, the three nascent soul stage masters, even if they knew that Lin Yi wasn't there, they wouldn't dare to betray the Green Cloud sect. After sending the two away, Lin Yi didn't have time to talk to Lingshan. The communication bead that Languzha gave him in his pocket lit up. Obviously, Languzha was looking for him. They had only been separated for a short while, and Languzha had already returned to the depths of the endless sea. Lin Yi was confused. He could only inform Lingshan and fly to the sea near the Green Cloud sect in the north and put the communication bead into the sea. After coming into contact with the water of the endless sea, The communication bead immediately emitted a dazzling light. A shadow of Langusia appeared in front of Lin Yi. Boss, this is the location of the Green Cloud sect in the north. That's great, it's quite close to where I am now. Wait for me, I'll be there soon. Langusia's image laughed loudly as he spoke to Lin Yi with a face full of enthusiasm. That's right. Lin Yi smiled and said, why are you looking for me so soon? Have you already returned to the clan and met your people? Langusia shook his head and said, not yet, but I've already contacted the clan. Snake Shichiro did a good job this time, and told them about your contributions. So, the clan told me to invite you to our clan's land as a guest. Invite me to your clan? Lin Yi found it strange. Normally, didn't the sea beasts hate human practitioners? Boss, this is an invitation from our sea serpent king himself. You can't just give him face. Otherwise, Langusia, won't be able to go back in the future. Langusia was obviously happy that the sea serpent king invited Lin Yi. After all, this was a gift from Lin Yi for saving Langusia. It indirectly showed that the sea serpent king cared about Langusia. As for whether this was the real situation, it would have to wait until he returned to see the situation. Lin Yi thought for a while and didn't refuse. Although he planned to return to Heaven Island in a few days, he still had to leave some time for the Sea Serpent King. He could also discuss with the Sea Serpent King about the sea beast cause in the future. All right, then I'll take the liberty to go with you. How much longer until you arrive? Lin Yi looked back in the direction of the Green Cloud sect and saw a disciple in the distance. He waved his hand at him. Before the disciple came near, Langusia already replied, I'm already here. Boss, do you see me? Chapter 56-44. As expected of a mutated mystic early phase sea serpent, its speed in the sea was even faster than flying spirit beasts. Whoever was targeted by it in the endless sea wouldn't be able to escape its clutches. Lin Yi didn't expect Langusia to come so quickly. He wanted to ask this Blue Cloud sect disciple to call Lingshan and Wu Chentian over to talk to them, but it seemed like it was too late. He could only ask this disciple to tell them where Lin Yi went so that they wouldn't worry. After receiving Lin Yi's order, the disciple immediately turned around and went back. Langusia also came to the shore at almost the same time and laughed at Lin Yi. Boss, you didn't wait too long, right? I used all my strength to come here, I'm sorry. Actually, you didn't have to use all your strength to come here. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head, but what he said was the truth. I didn't want to let you wait too long, plus I wanted you to see the place of the Sea Serpent clan as soon as possible, so I was a bit impatient. Let's go now. Langusia scratched his head with his front claws, looking simple and honest. He didn't look like a mystical early phase sea beast at all. I knew you would be in a hurry, so I didn't go back to say anything. Lin Yi wasn't surprised at all. Looking at Langusia's speed just now, he knew that this guy wouldn't let Lin Yi dawdle here. Langusia laughed and turned to Lin Yi. Boss, get on my back. Because it's a bit far, flying spirit beasts aren't as fast as me. It's best if we can go back as soon as possible. Alright, then I'll have to trouble you. Lin Yi didn't refuse and directly jumped on Langusia's back. He was a Yuan spirit anyway, so he didn't need to worry about dying in the endless sea without flying spirit beasts. At most, he could fly by himself. Besides, with Langusia, he definitely wouldn't encounter any danger in the endless sea. It's my, Langusia's, honor to be able to carry Boss on my back. Boss, sit tight. We're leaving now. Then, Langusia arched his body and shot out like lightning, directly diving into the endless sea, leaving a 7-meter-high waterline behind as he quickly disappeared into the distance. Lin Yi stood on Langusia's broad back and didn't feel any bumps, but he still maintained a very high speed. In the blink of an eye, the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island became a black dot on the horizon and finally disappeared. Langusia, your sea beast clan seems to be very united. When we rescued you this time, the entire endless sea was rioting. Lin Yi's consciousness noticed that some of the sea beasts avoided Langusia when they saw him. They waited respectfully for him to pass before continuing their actions. Lin Yi said this casually. Langusia laughed and said, Boss, you're wrong. There's no such thing as unity in the endless sea. It's just the law of the jungle. Because the sea beast royal family is at the top of the food chain, no sea beast dares to disobey the orders of our royal family, so it's a high-handed rule. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. In this case, it seemed much easier to let the people in the ancient small Jianghu buy the inner pellets of the sea beasts with a part of the spirit jades or other tools. Of course, hunting sea beasts was also a way to cultivate. As long as the sea beast royal family didn't care, they could choose to do so. Boss, you can say that, but we prefer to say that the strong are respected. In the endless sea, the strong are respected and worshipped. I heard that the human clan also has such a tradition, but compared to our endless sea, perhaps there's still a gap. Languzha said proudly. Lin Yi was silent. The sea beasts in the endless sea usually seemed to be loose, and the royal family didn't often manage them. However, when it was necessary, they could mobilize more than 90% of the sea beasts in the shortest time. On the contrary, the human clan seemed to have a strict hierarchy. For example, in the ancient small Jianghu, there were the 4 big ones and 10 small ones. However, once something happened, the probability of each sea beast clan fighting alone or even stabbing others in the back was 80 to 90%. Lin Yi shook his head. This idea just flashed through his mind. Although it was a little heavy, it wasn't something he should consider now. Languzha, if I say that we need a batch of sea beast dance at the gold core stage or even the nascent soul stage every year, will it cause a dispute between the human clan and the sea beasts? Although he knew that it was unlikely, Lin Yi still needed to confirm it. Sure enough, Languzha shook his head and said, Boss, if you need it, of course there's no problem, but I don't know if the quantity is large. If it's too large, it might be a little troublesome. Lin Yi calculated in his heart. The spirit jade immortal veins dance could be hunted by each sect. After all, the rules had been set, and they couldn't be too comfortable. Now, the sea beast dance that they wanted to exchange for were mainly used to refine elixirs. Ma Zedong, the head of the 5 Elements sect, had received the true Qi Dan Fire Heart chant and related notes on alchemy from Lin Yi. It would definitely improve the level of alchemy in the 5 Elements sect by several levels, so the demand for sea beast dance would certainly increase. Completely relying on hunting sea beasts couldn't meet this demand, so Lin Yi had to prepare for a rainy day. Every year, we need about 2,000 to 3,000 inner dance. The ratio between the nascent soul stage, the gold core stage, and the foundation establishment stage should be 1 to 3 to 6. Lin Yi reckoned that if these inner dance were used to refine elixirs, it should be enough to supply the development needs of the small ancient underworld, so he didn't have the nerve to say more. Languzha turned his head and said in astonishment, 2,000 to 3,000 inner dance, so little? Then there's no problem. I thought boss wanted more than 100,000 inner dance. Lin Yi was speechless. Only now did he remember that his little brother was one of the members of the Endless Sea's royal family, and was definitely a local tycoon. A mere 2,000 to 3,000 inner dance was indeed nothing in his eyes, but Lin Yi didn't intend to change his mind. In any case, it was fine as long as it was enough. The small ancient underworld might not have enough to exchange for more. Boss, why don't you ask for more? In any case, although we sea beasts also like to eat inner dance, it takes a long time to digest one inner dance. It's far less efficient than eating meat directly. In the entire endless sea, tens of thousands of sea beasts die of natural causes every year, let alone those that die unnaturally. Languzha really didn't regard Lin Yi as an outsider, and told him about this matter in detail. Lin Yi faintly smiled and said, let's talk about this later. As long as we can reach an agreement with your sea beast clan, someone will naturally be responsible for purchasing. I'm just asking about this possibility first. Chapter 56-45. Languzha said straightforwardly, all right then. In the future, when you need dance, just send someone to find me. I will definitely get it done for you. Originally, Languzha wanted to say that he would give Lin Yi a batch of dance. However, looking at Lin Yi's expression, it seemed that they wanted to cooperate for a long time. Therefore, he didn't say anything definite. After all, he was only a junior in the royal family, so his words didn't have much power. All right, I will have to trouble you in the future, Lin Yi said politely. Although Languzha had recognized Lin Yi as his boss, he was still a member of the royal family of the sea beasts. Before he had a deeper understanding of his character, Lin Yi wouldn't casually order Languja around. "Boss, you are too polite. If you didn't save me, I would only have this dance left." Languja laughed and said frankly, "To be honest, if I had enough power, it wouldn't be a problem to give you a batch of dans every year. Unfortunately, as a member of the royal family, I am just a marginal character who can't say anything in the clan. Can't say anything and still make the entire Endless Sea riot." Lin Yi asked curiously, "After you were kidnapped, didn't the royal family mobilize all the sea beasts to rescue you? Being able to have such a formation, you should be an important member of the clan, right?" Languja shook his head and said carelessly, "Boss, you don't understand our Sea Flood Dragon clan. As the overlord of the Endless Sea, if a member of the clan was kidnapped and we didn't do anything, wouldn't our prestige be ruined? So, instead of saying that it was to save me, it was to save the face of the royal family. You sound so pitiful. If it was really like this, you wouldn't have invited me over, right?" Lin Yi didn't think that Languja would lie, but he still analyzed it for him. Languja laughed and said, "That's true. I didn't expect the patriarch to suddenly invite you over. Maybe it's because Snake Shichiro said a lot of good things about you." After a slight pause, Languja continued, "Boss, I am actually the third in line to the throne, but my mother is a sea snake, so in terms of bloodline, I am not particularly pure, so I have never been valued by the clan. But don't worry, boss, if anyone dares to make things difficult for you, I, Languja, will not let them off easily even if I have to die." Lin Yi was slightly startled. Previously, Languja had been speaking in a relaxed and casual tone, but the last few sentences revealed a rare sense of seriousness. It seemed very serious. Obviously, Languja wasn't a fool. He thought that Lin Yi might not have a smooth journey, so he let Lin Yi be mentally prepared in advance. At the same time, he also expressed his determination to protect Lin Yi. Without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Languja laughed and resumed his previous tone, "Boss, you are a rare distinguished guest. Look at me talking about useless things. Let me introduce the scenery of the Endless Sea to you." Since Languja had changed the topic, Lin Yi cooperated and didn't say anything more. Instead, he talked about various things in the Endless Sea with Languja. After half an hour, Languja caught up with Snake Shichiro and his team of sea beasts. After greeting Snake Shichiro, Lin Yi and Snake Shichiro met up and continued their journey to the deep part of the Endless Sea. With the addition of Snake Shichiro, Languja's conversation became more and more lively. It also let Lin Yi know that, according to the human's words, Snake Shichiro could be considered as Languja's cousin, because Languja's mother was an elder of Snake Shichiro's tribe. No wonder Snake Shichiro and Languja got along so well, playing together since they were young. It turned out that there was such a layer of relationship. After half a day, this team arrived at a small island in the deep part of the Endless Sea. This was where the king's palace of the Sea Flood Dragon tribe was located. "Boss, don't be fooled by this small island. In fact, the part under the sea is very big. That's the main part of the palace. It's a pity that I can't take you to visit it this time. Unless the patriarch personally gives the permission, outsiders are forbidden to enter." Languja turned his head and said to Lin Yi with a regretful expression. Lin Yi didn't care about it. He didn't come here to visit the Sea Flood Dragon Palace, so he smiled and said, "It's okay. It's good enough to be a guest on the island. Languja, you don't need to worry about it too much." "Hey, isn't this Languja? You're finally back. Only you could be captured by the human race. What a shame. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't have the face to come back." Before Lin Yi and Languja could get on the island, a sea flood dragon appeared nearby and ridiculed Languja. Originally, Lin Yi thought that this was Languja's tribe coming to welcome Languja's return. Now, it seemed like he was thinking too much. Languja snorted and said bluntly, "Languli, don't waste my time here. I don't want to argue with you today. Get lost." "Hey, your temper seems to have increased. Is it because I haven't taught you a lesson for so long that you've forgotten the pain?" Languli glanced at Languja disdainfully. As if he had suddenly noticed Lin Yi, he pointed his claw at Lin Yi and said, "You actually let a human sit on your back? Languja, you're really promising. In the simple hierarchy of the sea beasts, those who could carry others were existences of low status. For example, back in Ruin's town, the sea crab that carried Snake Shichiro was merely a means of transportation. Now that Languja had allowed Lin Yi to stand on his back, it was tantamount to placing himself in a lowly position. To Languja, Lin Yi was his boss, so there was no problem with him doing this. However, in Lan Guli's eyes, Languja was ruining the reputation of the sea serpent tribe. Despicable human, get off Languja's back immediately. Although this bastard is also a despicable thing, he's still not someone a human like you can compare to. Lan Guli shouted at Lin Yi unceremoniously. He didn't care if he was hurting Languja's reputation. How dare you? Who are you calling despicable? Do you believe that I won't kill you? Languja instantly exploded. He propped up half of his body and shouted at Lan Guli. Lan Guli was also a direct descendant of the Sea Serpent King and could be considered as Languja's cousin. However, his bloodline was pure and his talent far surpassed that of the previous Languja. Now that he had the strength of a nascent soul stage cultivator, although he was the fourth successor, he had never regarded Languja with any importance. Chapter 56-46. Lan Guli laughed heartily. Yo, you're really ambitious now. You actually dare to challenge me. Looks like it's been too long since I've dealt with you that you've forgotten who you are. As Languja did not reveal his profound ascension initial stage aura, Lan Guli still thought that Languja was still the same Languja, that he could do whatever he wanted. However, he did not know that what Languja said was the truth. Due to the new and old hatred, he really had the intention to kill Lan Guli. If it wasn't for the fact that the Sea Serpent clan had very few members and that it was forbidden for the clansmen to kill each other, Languja might have already been killed by Lan Guli. However, because of this rule, he could only forcefully suppress the killing intent in his heart. Snake Shichiro stood awkwardly at the side and did not dare to interrupt. He was also a relative of the Sea Serpent clan, and he had a trace of the Sea Serpent bloodline in him. However, the dispute between these two members of the Sea Serpent clan was not something that he could interfere in. Lin Yi did not mind. He knew that there was no true Sea Serpent clan in the entire Sea Serpent clan. Currently, the strongest one was only at the profound ascension stage. After mastering the method of using divine sense to execute martial techniques, Lin Yi could already ignore all opponents below the mountain opening stage. We humans have a saying, a good dog doesn't block the way. Languja, looks like the Sea Serpent clan's royal clan does not know this. Lin Yi's expression did not change as he spoke indifferently. However, these words were like the fuse that ignited a barrel of explosives. Languja reacted quickly and laughed. Boss, don't mind him. Even in our Sea Serpent clan, there are some uneducated people who like to look for trouble. Lan Guli was instantly enraged. This damned human compared him to a dog, and Languja even said that he was uneducated. This was simply intolerable. With a sharp howl, Lan Guli did not waste any more words. He soared into the sky from the sea and attacked Languja and Lin Yi. This was not the first time he had bullied Languja, so there was really nothing for him to worry about. Lin Yi snorted coldly. He did not give Languja a chance to make a move. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed a beam of 5 elements killing chi. The 5 elements killing chi unleashed by his divine sense was completely different from the 5 elements killing chi unleashed by his Yuan Shen. Languja's vision blurred for a moment before he was sent flying by the tremendous force. His slender body straightened up, and with a flash, he plunged into the distant sea like an arrow, causing a huge splash. Boss, you're so awesome. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Languja laughed heartily. Although he couldn't personally take revenge, Lin Yi's actions made him feel extremely refreshed. Let's go, we'll head to the island first. Lin Yi casually waved his hand. Such a domineering move was just to show his attitude. Those who came were guests, and the one who invited Lin Yi was the Sea Flood Dragon King. Not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry could jump out and humiliate Lin Yi. As long as they dared to jump out, Lan Guli would be the best example. Snake Shichiro understood Lin Yi's meaning. Therefore, he looked at Lin Yi with reverence. This human was truly ruthless and confident. He was probably the only one who dared to come to the Flood Dragon Island to establish his might, right? Once they reached the island, Lin Yi jumped off Languja's body. Although Languja did not mind, Lin Yi also had to consider the way others looked at Languja. On this point, Lan Guli's words were not wrong. Damned human! How dare you sneak attack me? Lan Guli's furious roar came from behind. Clearly, he hadn't learned his lesson from the previous attack. Lin Yi frowned slightly. After hearing the commotion over here, there were already quite a few sea serpents gathering here. Adding Lan Guli into the mix wouldn't be enough, but the commotion would only get louder and louder. Where did this human come from? The Flood Dragon Island does not welcome you. Scram immediately. The sea flood dragon that came first raised its head and roared at Lin Yi with a stern expression. Lan Guli arrived on the island at the right time and blocked Lin Yi with the sea flood dragon that came later. He glared at Lin Yi viciously. After noticing that a few of his clansmen had come over, Lan Guli's heart was filled with confidence. Indeed, he didn't see how Lin Yi attacked him just now. Although he was sent flying, it didn't cause any substantial damage. At most, it was just a little pain. Lan Guli was indeed afraid of Lin Yi. However, he would not be afraid to this extent. He had also heard that the humans in the ancient underworld had never surpassed the profound ascension stage of the nascent soul great circle. At the same level, sea beasts were stronger than humans. Not to mention, he was the king of the sea beasts, a sea flood dragon. To be sent flying by Lin Yi, he must have underestimated his opponent. Moreover, this human must have used some shameful method to do so. Lan Guli's mind spun rapidly. Finally, he came to this conclusion. Human, scram off the Flood Dragon Island. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Another sea flood dragon joined in and berated with a stern expression. In fact, they had received a notice and knew that Languja would bring a human to the island. Therefore, they came to stop him. Otherwise, if a human came up, they would have killed him without a second word. Why would they have the time to be so noisy? Languja said angrily, Boss Lin Yi was invited by the Patriarch. Which one of you dares to chase him away? Are you all trying to rebel? The sea flood dragons were stunned. Because they knew that Languja wasn't lying, they didn't know how to continue. Were they going to let them off just like that? Then why did they come to stop him? Do you think the Patriarch invited him just because you said so? Do you have any proof? He's just a lowly human. What right does he have to be invited by the Patriarch? Lan Guli said with a laugh. He continued to mock Lin Yi. Lin Yi was speechless at this kind of idiot who didn't learn from his mistakes. He simply sent out another wave of 5 elements killing Qi and sent Lan Guli flying again. This time, Lin Yi's attack was slightly heavier. If it was the previous perfected Dunan, he might have vomited blood and suffered serious injuries. However, the sea flood dragon's strong body helped Lan Guli avoid injury. After rolling a few times on the ground, he came back as if nothing had happened. However, there was a hint of fear in his eyes when he looked at Lin Yi. I was invited by your sea flood dragon king as a guest. If you don't believe me, go back and ask your king, or should I say, is this how you sea flood dragons treat your guests? If that's the case, then this Flood Dragon Island isn't worth my visit. Lin Yi sneered. When he said the last sentence, his face was full of disdain and contempt for the Flood Dragon Island. Chapter 56-47. TMPH, we don't know if it's true or not. We'll let you guys on the island for now. If it's all nonsense, then don't even think about leaving this place alive. Lan Guli pretended to be unyielding. Unfortunately, he was already feeling a little guilty in front of Lin Yi, so his words didn't sound imposing at all. Among these sea serpents, Lan Guli was probably the leader. Hence, when he spoke, the other sea serpents didn't say anything else. They could only let Lin Yi and the rest swagger onto the island. When Languja left, he purposely snorted at Lan Guli. Then, he raised his head high with a proud look on his face. Being able to see Lan Guli being slapped away twice made him very happy. In the center of Serpent Island, there was a huge sea dragon palace. The style was rather rough. Obviously, this wasn't something the sea serpents were good at. In Lin Yi's eyes, It was simply frighteningly simple. Within his divine sense, the palace under the island that Languja had mentioned was also partially detected by Lin Yi. It still had the same style, but because of the beautiful underwater scenery as a natural decoration, it was very interesting. Serpents weren't the only ones on Serpent Island. There were also some other sea beasts as servants. Lin Yi, Languja, and Snake Shichiro were brought to a huge palace without walls. They sat at a stone table that had been prepared beforehand. After the sea beast that led the way left, only Lin Yi and the other two were left in the spacious palace. The sea breeze blew against them, and they looked at each other speechlessly. Other than being huge, this palace was actually more like a pavilion, right? After a short while, the Sea Serpent King finally came out. He didn't bring any other serpents with him. Languja looked at Lin Yi awkwardly. Although the Sea Serpent King had personally come out, other than him and Snake Shichiro, there weren't any other guests. This banquet was a little shabby. Grandfather. Languja stood up and bowed respectfully. Sea Serpent King only nodded slightly and did not say anything else. Snake Shichiro followed. Snake Shichiro pays his respects to the Dragon King. Although he was only a Jiao Dragon, being called a Dragon King made him happier. Therefore, the Jiao Dragon King smiled and said, "Snake Shichiro, you did a good job this time. Languja is lucky to have a friend like you. You flatter me, Dragon King." This is what Snake Shichiro is supposed to do. Snake Shichiro was flattered and said modestly. The Sea Serpent King said a few words of encouragement before turning to Lin Yi. "You're Lin Yi, right? I heard from Shi Qi Lang that you've contributed a lot this time. That's why I invite you to the Flood Dragon Island as a guest to thank you. The delicacies of the Endless Sea are not easy to be eaten by your human tribe. Please don't be too polite." Lin Yi frowned slightly. This Jiao Dragon King's words were polite, but his tone was condescending. He was the king of the Endless Sea, so it was normal for him to be arrogant. But why did he look down on him with such a tone? "Thank you, Dragon King, for your invitation." Lin Yi cupped his hands and thanked him, neither servile nor overbearing. Since the Serpent King had such an attitude, Lin Yi had a pretty good idea of what was going on. The Sea Serpent King nodded and didn't say much to Lin Yi. He turned to Snake Shichiro and said, "Snake Shichiro, you've contributed a lot this time. Your ancestors are also from our Jiao Dragon tribe, so I won't mistreat you. From now on, you will be the Prince Commander of the Endless Sea's Lotus Luo Sea. Do well, I have high hopes for you." Snake Shichiro was overjoyed and hurried to express his gratitude. "Snake Shichiro thanks my king for your grace. From now on, I will go through fire and water for the prosperity of the royal family without hesitation." The so-called Prince Commander was basically a member of the Sea Beast royal family. Although the Lotus Luo Sea wasn't big, with this title, Snake Shichiro could be considered to have entered the core of the Endless Sea's upper echelons. If Snake Shichiro could transform into a sea serpent, he could use this title to advance further and truly integrate into the core circle of the Sea Serpent clan. Very good. With such a young and promising descendant like you, our Sea Beast clan won't have to worry about not having the opportunity to develop and prosper. The Sea Serpent King said gently. He then turned to Lin Yi and said, "As for our human friend, do you have any rewards you want? Because you're not a member of our Sea Beast clan, the position in the Endless Sea doesn't mean anything to you." What he meant was that Lin Yi could just ask for some benefits and go home. Don't expect to get the true recognition of the Sea Beast clan. Lin Yi frowned again. This Sea Serpent King ignored him, but he's getting angry. Rewards? Who does he think he is? If it wasn't for Languja's face, who would care about this old Sea Serpent King's face? But thinking that he would only be staying for a short while, there was no need to fall out with the Sea Serpent King. Hence, Lin Yi didn't want to bother about the Sea Serpent King's attitude. It was enough as long as he achieved his goal. "Sea Serpent King, I don't need your rewards. This time, I'm only here to reach an agreement with the Sea Serpent clan," Lin Yi said faintly. He only emphasized the word reward, implicitly expressing his power. As the savior of Languja, Lin Yi wasn't a servant of the Sea Serpent clan. He didn't need the Sea Serpent King's rewards. The Sea Serpent King narrowed his eyes. He could naturally hear some clues from Lin Yi's words. To be honest, the Sea Serpent King really looked down on Lin Yi. This invitation was just a formality to save face for the Sea Serpent clan. Grandpa, this human is too arrogant. He actually wants to discuss a deal with our Sea Serpent clan. What a joke. As soon as Lin Yi finished speaking, Lan Guli and the other Sea Serpent King entered the hall. With the Sea Serpent King present, Lan Guli regained his confidence. Hence, he immediately interrupted Lin Yi. The Sea Serpent King turned to look at Lan Guli and the other Sea Serpent King. Lan Guli, don't talk nonsense. This is Languja's benefactor. Hence, he has the right to ask for something. The other Sea Serpent King glanced at Languja and Lin Yi with disdain. He then bowed to the Sea Serpent King. Grandpa, grandsons have come to disturb you. It's all right. Lan Guli, since you're here, come and sit with us. It's also good to accompany our human guests. The Sea Serpent King said amiably. Lan Guli was a genius of the Sea Serpent clan. At a young age, he evolved from a sea serpent to a sea serpent dragon. Chapter 56-48. Lan Guao thanked him, then sat down with Lan Guli. He then looked at Lin Yi and said, Human, don't think that just because you saved Languja once, you can negotiate with the sea serpent race. Even if you overestimate yourself, there should be a limit. What status do you think you have to be on equal footing with the sea serpent race? Languja angrily said, Lan Guao, what status do you think you have? This is a conversation between Grandpa and Boss Lin Yi. What qualifications do you and Lan Guli have to interrupt? Enough. Shut up. The Sea Serpent King growled, cutting off Languja's words. He also stopped Lan Guao and Lan Guli from continuing. Human, tell me your request first. This king said that he would reward you. As long as it's not too excessive, this king can satisfy your request. Honestly speaking, Lin Yi had basically given up on hope. At most, he would just have to go hunt sea beast. But since the Sea Serpent King had said so, whether or not it worked out, he still had to mention it. I hope to be able to exchange 3,000 sea beast cores with the sea serpent race every year. The ratio is 300 nascent soul, 900 golden core, and 1,800 foundation establishment. I wonder if Sea Serpent King is willing to agree. As for what he would give in exchange, Lin Yi didn't even mention it. If the Sea Serpent King had this intention, then he would naturally continue the negotiations. If he didn't, then everything else was useless. As expected, the Sea Serpent King didn't even ask about Lin Yi's conditions. He directly refused, impossible. The cores of our sea beast race will never be given to a human, let alone 3,000 per year. Seeing that you've saved Languja, I'll give you 30 sea beast inner elixirs when you return later. The ratio will be as you've suggested. Lin Yi was enraged. 30 cores. Was he trying to send a beggar away? During the sea beast rampage and the battle on the island, Lin Yi had single-handedly killed 2,000 sea beasts. Why would he care about a mere 30 sea beast cores? What was worse was that when Lin Yi and Languja were chatting about this matter, Languja also told Lin Yi that hundreds of thousands of sea beasts died of natural causes in the endless sea every year. Several thousand inner dans were just a drop in the ocean. For the sea beasts in the endless sea, where the strong were respected and the weak were prey to the strong, it didn't matter whether these inner dans were given to humans or not. But now, the Sea Serpent King had rejected Lin Yi's proposal and wasn't even willing to listen to Lin Yi's conditions. This was simply too much. Sea Serpent King, I'm not asking for your nidans for free. The humans of the ancient Jianghu used spirit jades or other items to trade. For both sides, this is a win-win situation. Why can't you accept it? Lin Yi suppressed his anger and said coldly to the Sea Serpent King. There is no why. The Sea Serpent King said indifferently, the sea beasts are all noble. Even if it's an inner core left behind after a natural death, it's not something humans can easily touch. So, whatever you say is useless. There's no need to talk about this anymore. This argument was simply ridiculous. Did this old thing think that if they didn't trade, Lin Yi and the humans of the ancient Jianghu wouldn't be able to get the inner dans? At most, they could just kill more sea beast. The Sea Serpent King would rather the sea beasts of the endless sea be killed than exchange the inner dance of the sea beasts that died of natural causes. In Lin Yi's eyes, he was simply a stupid king. Is this the sincerity of the Sea Serpent King? Alright, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Lin Yi sneered. It seemed that he couldn't communicate with this Sea Serpent King anymore. The Sea Serpent King also sneered, "Human, don't think that just because you're Languja's savior, you can threaten the Sea Serpent King. Grandpa, why would Boss Lin Yi want to threaten us? He just wants to exchange for a bit of inner dance every year. There's nothing wrong with that." Languja very loyally argued for Lin Yi. Unfortunately, he completely didn't understand the Sea Serpent King's thoughts, so there was no result. The Sea Serpent King didn't even need to speak. Lan Guao and Lan Guli both angrily rebuked, "Languja, remember your identity. You actually have the nerve to call a human boss here? What a disgrace. Boss Lin Yi saved my life. What's so shameful about me calling him boss? On the contrary, it's you two who are fanning the flames here that's even more shameful for the Sea Serpent King." Languja also threw caution to the wind and roared, not backing down even half a step. The Sea Serpent King unhappily shouted, "Enough! What are the three of you doing? Restrain yourselves a little." The Sea Serpent King was quite displeased that there was internal strife in front of a human like Lin Yi. He didn't like Languja to begin with, and now all his dissatisfaction was directed at Languja. However, he didn't seem to have any intention of blaming Lan Guao and Lan Guli at all. Lin Yi laughed coldly in his heart. Languja really wasn't talking nonsense. His position in the Sea Serpent King was indeed quite awkward. He was the third-in-line successor in name, but he didn't receive the slightest bit of attention. With the Sea Serpent King's favoritism, Lan Guli immediately said arrogantly, "Grandfather, Languja is really a disgrace to the Sea Serpent King. Perhaps something happened to Languja after he was captured by the humans. Grandfather, please allow me to investigate and see if Languja was sent back as a spy by the humans." Snake Shichiro's expression also turned ugly. This idiot's imagination was quite wild. He could come up with anything. If that was the case, didn't that mean that Snake Shichiro had also colluded with the humans? Unfortunately, even though Snake Shichiro was a prince commander of the Lian Luosi region, he didn't have the right to speak in this situation. He could only lower his head angrily and curse Lan Guli in his heart. "Lan Guli, that's enough. I didn't hold it against you when you bullied me all this time. However, if you insult me and Boss Lin Yi again, I definitely won't let this matter rest." Languja pointed at Lan Guli and roared. This made the Sea Serpent King even more displeased. "Oh my, you're saying that you didn't hold it against me when I bullied you all this time? You sure sound confident. Looks like I should thank you for showing mercy. How about this? You better show me what you're capable of and hold it against me. Show me if you don't let this matter rest," Lan Guli said with a mocking expression. He was very clear about Languja's strength. Chapter 56-49. Languja couldn't take it anymore and directly shot out from behind the table. His monstrous aura completely enveloped Lan Guli as he appeared in front of him in an instant. Lan Guli's expression immediately changed. At this time, Languja's profound ascending early-stage aura was completely exposed. How was this the early-stage nascent soul that he could easily bully? But it was too late to realize now. Although the early-stage profound ascending early-stage and the nascent soul great circle seemed to only be one level apart, the difference between this one level was like the distance between heaven and earth. When a sea serpent matured and evolved into a flood dragon, this was the greatest manifestation of this level. Lan Guao was right beside Lan Guli. After discovering Languja's strength, he was also greatly shocked. However, he was also a profound ascending early-stage expert, so he wouldn't just watch as Lan Guli was attacked. Under Lan Guli's horrified gaze, Lan Guao teleported in front of him and forcefully blocked Languja's attack, forcing Languja to retreat. After all, Languja's strength had just been forcefully raised by the center. Although Lin Yi's treatment had caused him to mutate, that only increased his potential. His current strength and experience were far from Lan Guao's, so it was normal that he couldn't gain any advantage in one move. The Sea Serpent King originally allowed Lan Guli to teach Languja a lesson. He didn't expect that Languja would turn the tables and teach Lan Guli a lesson. For a moment, he looked at Languja in shock and didn't say anything. Lan Guao narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at Languja. He nodded slightly and said, "You're actually also at the profound ascending early stage. I really didn't expect this. Since you have the qualifications to challenge me, then I'll give you a chance today. As long as you can beat me, I'll speak up for you in front of grandfather. How about it?" All along, Lan Guao had looked down on Languja. Not to mention the difference in strength, he was firmly above Languja in terms of succession, not to mention the difference in status in the Sea Serpent King's heart. To put it bluntly, an early nascent soul stage Languja didn't even have the qualifications to enter Lan Guao's line of sight. In other words, Lan Guli, who was ranked behind Languja and whose strength surpassed Languja, had always been thinking of ways to deal a blow to Languja. But now, when Languja displayed strength that wasn't inferior to Lan Guao's, and he hadn't even transformed into a sea serpent, Lan Guao couldn't help but take him seriously. He naturally wanted to find out the truth about Languja. The Sea Serpent King had a calm expression on his face. That short exchange just now couldn't even be considered a test, but with his eyesight, he was sure that Languja wasn't Lan Guao's opponent. Since Lan Guao had this intention, he would pretend not to hear it. Who asked Lan Guao to be his favorite grandson? Languja hesitated for a moment. Because Lan Guao had never treated him as an opponent and didn't bully him like Lan Guli, or rather, he didn't care to bully him. Therefore, Languja didn't particularly hate Lan Guao. Right now, he could only look at Lin Yi and see if Lin Yi had any suggestions. Lin Yi faintly smiled and lightly nodded at Languja, indicating for him to agree. Since the current Sea Serpent tribe didn't have a good impression of the human race, perhaps supporting Languja to take the lead wasn't a bad choice. If Lan Guao jumped out himself, it wouldn't be a bad idea to let Languja show off. When Languja saw that Lin Yi also agreed to let him go, he immediately threw away all his worries and said, "All right. Then let me experience the power of our Sea Serpent tribe's genius. If I'm lucky enough to win by half a move, I hope you, Lan Guao, will keep your promise. Do you think I'll go back on my word for such a small matter?" Lan Guao looked at Languja with disdain and said, "Only a guy like you would take it seriously. Cut the crap and come." "All right." Languja roared and shot towards Lan Guao like a bolt of lightning. Although he knew that he might not be Lan Guao's opponent, Languja didn't show the slightest bit of fear. His indomitable aura was quite astonishing, and even Lan Guao couldn't help but put away his underestimation and face Languja's attack seriously. Both sides had the intention to fight it out, but Lin Yi didn't want to waste any time. He secretly used his divine sense to activate a martial skill, summoning a bolt of lightning that accurately struck Lan Guao's head. Lan Guao, who was caught off guard, was struck to the ground by the lightning, and started to twitch uncontrollably. Although this strike wouldn't take his life, it was enough to temporarily immobilize him. Languja was also stunned by this situation, but he immediately understood that Lin Yi was secretly helping him. If it was someone with an inflexible personality, they might think that Lin Yi's actions were an insult to the spirit of a duel, but Languja felt that his boss was always right. It was only right and proper for him to help him. What was so strange about that? Taking advantage of the fact that Lan Guao was unable to move, Languja bluntly sent him flying. This could be considered as his victory in this competition. Lan Guo was dumbfounded. What the fuck was going on? Lan Guao was actually defeated in an instant. That lightning martial skill was so domineering. This fellow, Languja, had actually grasped such a powerful technique. Who would dare to bully him in the future? He wouldn't be the one being bullied instead, right? On the other hand, the Sea Serpent King, who was sitting at the head of the table, saw that Languja was slightly stunned when the lightning appeared, and thus deduced that the lightning technique that Lan Guao used in the attack was not from Languja. The most suspicious person was, of course, the expressionless Lin Yi. This human really wasn't simple. The Sea Flood Dragon King looked deeply at Lin Yi, thinking in his heart. Lin Yi was able to activate a martial skill right under his nose without him noticing anything. His strength could be considered unfathomable. For a person like this, offending him too much wasn't a wise thing to do. The Endless Sea was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. The strong were respected. This was an unchanging rule, so the Sea Flood Dragon King's thoughts changed quite naturally. Lan Jiu Li, go see if Lan Jiu Ao is injured. Take him to get some rest. The Sea Flood Dragon King made up his mind and sent Lan Jiu Li away. Coincidentally, Lan Guli was also feeling a little fearful when he saw Languza. Being able to leave was exactly what he wanted. Hence, he quickly agreed and hurriedly left the place. When Languza saw this, the resentment he felt from being bullied finally dissipated. He turned to the Sea Flood Dragon King and said, "Grandpa, Lan Jiu Ao promised me that he would speak up for me. Although he's not here anymore, you heard about this, right?" Chapter 5650. Okay, I'll send someone to contact Snake Shichiro. Lin Yi didn't thank Sea Serpent King. After all, Languza was the one who fought for this deal. It had nothing to do with Sea Serpent King. If that's the case, I'll send Snake Shichiro to escort you. No human has ever set foot on Serpent Island. You're the first, and hopefully the last. Sea Serpent King directly gave the order to send the guest off, and clearly expressed that he didn't want Lin Yi to come back. Although he didn't want to offend Lin Yi, Sea Serpent King obviously didn't want to be friends with Lin Yi. His contempt and hostility towards humans had already penetrated deep into Sea Serpent King's bones. Being able to treat Lin Yi like this was already very good. "Grandpa, I hope to go out with Boss to gain some experience. Anyway, I have nothing to do on Serpent Island. Maybe I can complete my transformation faster if I follow Boss." Languza saw that Sea Serpent King was about to send Lin Yi away, so he quickly made his request. The Sea Serpent King looked at Languza and hesitated for a moment. He had never paid much attention to this grandson of his. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was dispensable. If it wasn't for the sake of the Sea Serpent tribe's reputation, Languza's death wouldn't be a big deal. But now that Languza had reached the early stage of mysterious ascension, he was a rare and important combat power for the Sea Serpent clan. Especially since Languza hadn't evolved yet, Sea Serpent King actually had some expectations for him. Considering that Languza's current strength was completely because he went to a human territory, perhaps following Lin Yi could really increase his strength. Plus, Sea Serpent King still didn't like Languza that much. So after thinking for a while, Sea Serpent King nodded and agreed to his request. "Thank you, Grandpa." After receiving an affirmative answer, Languza thanked him happily and then brought Lin Yi and Snake Shichiro to the beach under the island. Lin Yi's purpose of coming here had also been achieved. Although the process wasn't pleasant, at least he didn't come for nothing, so he was in a good mood. After leaving the hall, Lin Yi smiled at Languza and said, "Languza, it's all thanks to you this time." "Boss, what nonsense are you spouting? If not for you, how could I have taught Lan Jiu Ao and Lan Jiu Li a lesson so easily? To be honest, I didn't help much. In the end, it was all thanks to you, boss." Languza laughed. He was in a good mood. Sea Serpent King's bad attitude towards Lin Yi was out of their control, so they tacitly did not mention it. Lin Yi also stopped talking about who contributed more. Instead, he talked to Snake Shichiro about the deal. In fact, when Lin Yi was here, there was no need for any deal at all. No one would say anything if they just took it. However, Lin Yi was about to leave the immemorial underworld. At that time, Snake Shichiro would definitely have no objections, but it was hard to guarantee that the other sea beasts wouldn't take the opportunity to make things difficult for Snake Shichiro. Therefore, it was better to trade for a long time. In the end, this matter still depended on Shin Ijia and the others. After Lin Yi finalized the contact information, he could leave. "Languza, I will leave the immemorial underworld in a few days. There's no point in you following me. Why don't you go to the Lian Luo Sea with Snake Shichiro?" After talking to Snake Shichiro, Lin Yi said to Languza. Languza said indifferently, "Boss, I will follow you wherever you go. If you want to leave, then we can leave together. It's not a big problem." Lin Yi was speechless. Didn't this guy hear that he was leaving the immemorial underworld? Still following him? Langusia, when I said I want to leave the immemorial underworld, I meant to leave this space and go to another world. Lin Yi could only explain it simply in case Langusia really didn't understand. However, Langusia said excitedly, "Isn't it better to go to another world? I don't want to stay in the endless sea for a long time. Boss, you must bring me along." "You can't go." Lin Yi wanted to bring him to the heavenly island, but Lin Yi himself was projected here with his primordial spirit. It was impossible for Langusia to go there. "Boss, if you can go, I can go too," Langusia said firmly. He had made up his mind to rely on Lin Yi. Lin Yi felt a headache coming on. He couldn't explain it in a short amount of time, so he decided to let the guy tag along for now. He'd understand why Lin Yi could go, but he couldn't when he got back. Thinking of the heavenly island, Lin Yi suddenly thought of the relationship between the various sects in the immemorial underworld and the various forces on the heavenly island. Thus, he changed the topic and said, "Langusia, let me ask you something. Your Sea Dragon clan should be able to survive for a much longer time than the human clan. Do you know if there were any major changes in this world a long time ago?" Langusia said with a dumbfounded expression, "Boss, I'm so young. How would I know about things that happened a long time ago?" Lin Yi was stunned. Was there a definite relationship between being young and knowing about things that happened a long time ago? Even a primary school student in the secular world knew about 5,000 years of history. Forget it. This guy looked like he wasn't cultured. It was better to ask Snake Shichiro. Lin Yi did as he thought. Ignoring Langusia, he turned and asked, "Has Snake Shichiro heard of such things? There should be similar legends or records in the endless sea, right?" Snake Shichiro laughed dryly and said, "That, actually, our sea beast clan has never had the habit of recording things. As for legends, everyone basically just saw their prey go up and eat their fill. There's nothing to talk about, right?" Lin Yi felt that it was a waste of time to ask them this kind of question. It was better to ask each sect to check if there were any records about this after they returned to the Jadian sect. When it came to cultural inheritance, humans were indeed many times more powerful than the sea beasts. There was no comparison between them at all. After leaving the Sea Dragon Island, Langusia still carried Lin Yi on his back. Snake Shichiro, on the other hand, brought his subordinates to the Lianluo Sea to take up his post. After they separated, Langusia's speed suddenly became much faster. The time needed to return to the Jadian sect was also greatly shortened. During the 2 days that Lin Yi was away, Xin Yijie and the disciples who participated in the immemorial grand meeting returned with great rewards. After receiving the news of Lin Yi's return, a large group of people rushed out to welcome him. Chapter 56-51. Xin Yijie shook his head blankly and said, "I've never heard of it. Do you have any impression of it, Vice Head Hong?" Lin Yi also turned to look at Hong Zijuan. After all, he was the former head of Qingyun's sect, while Xin Yijie was just an ordinary gold core stage elder, and the one at the bottom. There was no comparison between the two. Hong Zijuan frowned and thought for a while, then said uncertainly, "If Granduncle wants to ask, I seem to have heard of this legend, but it's just a legend, there's no clear record." Lin Yi's eyes lit up. He didn't have much hope, but he didn't expect Hong Zijuan to really have heard of it. His interest was immediately aroused, and he signaled Hong Zijuan to continue. Hong Zijuan didn't dare to neglect. Lin Yi was not only the pillar of Qingyun's sect, but also the leader of the entire ancient small Jianghu. Anything that could interest Lin Yi, whether it was a legend or not, he had to tell Lin Yi in detail. Martial ancestral uncle, disciple heard that around 10,000 years ago, an enormous calamity had indeed occurred in the Primeval world. The specific situation is already impossible to verify now, and the only thing we know is that all the sects and clans at that time were practically annihilated, and the people that survived were less than 1 in 100. Moreover, they were all disciples at the lowest level of the clans. Hong Zijuan spoke very slowly. After all, it wasn't something important. He didn't even remember it completely, so he needed to sort out his memories while speaking. Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. He listened and thought at the same time. He felt that this statement was very likely to be the truth. At that time, in the ancient small Jianghu, there were powerful people at the profound ascension stage or even higher. But in that catastrophe, all the cultivators above the nascent soul stage disappeared. In the entire ancient small Jianghu, there hasn't been a single profound ascension stage cultivator since. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He suddenly thought of the God-controlling bracelet on his hand. According to Zhao Dan, he and Yin Chencheng found it in a cave house thousands of years ago. At that time, there was also a profound ascension stage sea beast's inner core. It seemed that the cave house was left tens of thousands of years ago. He wondered if there were any clues left behind there. Lin Yi was a little hesitant. Should he let Zhao Dan bring him to the cave to have a look? But he'd thought about Sky-class Island and Ziyu's request. If this wasn't too important, then he'd go the next time he came back. He'd decide before he left. If that's the case, then the inheritance of the ancient small Jianghu should have been broken at that time, right? Lin Yi asked casually as he was thinking about something. Hong Zijuan nodded and said, "It should be, because it was said that all the sects were destroyed at that time, and all the masters were missing. Although the surviving disciples rebuilt their sects, the cultivation methods and martial skills they obtained were incomplete. Perhaps this is the reason why there were no profound ascending stage cultivators from that time onwards." Lin Yi nodded slightly, but he believed that the lack of inheritance was only one of the reasons why there was no profound ascension stage. Another reason was that from that time onwards, the small Jianghu had lost the method and way to advance to the profound ascension stage with the help of the Thunder Tribulation. However, this method still existed on the Heavenly Island. Perhaps it existed on the ancient small Jianghu as well, but these people didn't notice it. It was evidently Xin Yijie's first time hearing about this legend, and he was listening with great interest. He suddenly asked, "So you're saying that Grand Master is a powerful person from 10,000 years ago?" Xin Yijie had long believed that this Grand Master Lin Yi wasn't from the ancient small Jianghu, but after hearing this legend, he wasn't so sure anymore. "Ha! I'm not that old." Lin Yi was about to leave the ancient small Jianghu, and he didn't need to hide his background anymore. He smiled and said, "I come from another plane, and the sects there are similar to the ancient small Jianghu. Their arts are the same as well, so there should be a connection. I come from the Green Cloud sect of the North Island, so I'm indeed your Grand Master." Xin Yijie and Hong Zijuan looked at each other, both surprised and happy. They had accepted the possibility that Lin Yi was a primordial spirit from 10,000 years ago, but now they heard that Lin Yi came from another plane. Both of them thought of the legendary powerful people who disappeared almost at the same time. Could it be that they were from another plane, and because they had the complete mantra and martial arts skills, they re-established their own sects and forces? Thinking of this possibility, both of them were instantly excited. If they could go to that plane, wouldn't they be able to meet many seniors from their sects? From Lin Yi's strength, it could be inferred that the development over there was definitely much more powerful than the ancient small Jianghu. After a brief mention, Lin Yi didn't want to say more. If he could open up the passage between the Heaven Stage Island and the ancient small Jianghu, then it would be meaningful to tell Xin Yijie and the others in detail. It was useless to say more now, and it was necessary for them to develop the ancient small Jianghu. Although Xin Yijie and Hong Zijuan were very curious about where Lin Yi came from, they didn't dare to ask since Lin Yi didn't want to say more. They could only suppress their thoughts and discuss with Lin Yi about the details of the transaction of the spiritual jade immortal vein and the inner elixir of the sea beasts. After talking about the transaction of the spiritual jade immortal vein and the inner elixir of the sea beasts, Lin Yi suddenly thought of something and asked, "Have you heard of the Azure Valley? There's a plant called the amethyst lotus there. It's said to be the best material to rebuild one's physical body." Lin Yi had always appeared in front of people with his primordial spirit. Therefore, Xin Yijie and Hong Zijuan didn't doubt him at all when he asked about the amethyst lotus. They naturally thought that Lin Yi wanted to rebuild his physical body for himself. With his current strength, he would be even more powerful if he had a physical body. Xin Yijie said first, "I've heard of the amethyst lotus, but I don't know where it is exactly. It's only now that Grand Uncle Master mentioned the Azure Valley that I know it's here. May I know the exact location of the Azure Valley?" We, the Blue Cloud sect, We'll definitely try our best to find the amethyst lotus for Grand Uncle Master. Lin Yi thought to himself, why would I ask you if I know the exact location? Moreover, the amethyst lotus was not for Lin Yi's own use. Xin Yijie obviously misunderstood, but he didn't intend to explain. Chapter 56-52. Oh. Zijuan, where did you hear about Blue Sky Valley? Tell me more. Lin Yi looked at Hong Zijuan with interest. He didn't expect Hong Zijuan to know so much. He was a talent in this aspect. Hong Zijuan was happy to see Lin Yi's interest. There were not many opportunities to show his presence in front of Lin Yi, so he treasured it very much. Replying to Grandmaster's words, Disciple also heard about the Blue Sky Valley at an ancient grand meeting more than 10 years ago. At that time, Disciple had just become the head of Jadian's sect not long ago, and coincidentally heard them mention it at a gathering of the 10 minor sect heads. Hong Zijuan wanted to say that he knew about Blue Sky Valley, but unfortunately, his information was very limited, so he could only provide such a clue. Lin Yi nodded and said, I see. In that case, there should be records about Blue Sky Valley among the 10 minor leaders. Zijuan, do you remember which clan's leader said that? Hong Zijuan said regretfully, I can't remember clearly, because I wasn't familiar with the leaders of the 10 small sects at that time, and the topic of Blue Sky Valley was just a passing thought, so I can only remember this much. I guess they don't know the specific location of Blue Sky Valley, or else there would be news of it after so many years. Lin Yi thought for a moment and said, all right, let's not talk about this for now. Yijie, send a notice to the 4 big and 10 minor leaders, and ask them to send a senior to Jadian's sect. I still need to give them an explanation for my leaving, so that there won't be any unnecessary trouble. Also, I need to explain to them about the spiritual jade immortal vein and the sea beast inner Dan. Yes, Grand Master. I'll arrange it now. Xin Yijie replied respectfully. Although the archaic event had just ended, and the 4 big and 10 minor leaders had just dispersed, they knew that it was Lin Yi's arrangement, so they probably wouldn't have any objections. Lin Yi wanted to ask if anyone knew the location of the Blue Sky Valley. For Lin Yi, the ghost was both a teacher and a friend. If he could find the purple mist black lotus, it would be a very good thing for both Lin Yi and the ghost. Hong Zijuan saw that Lin Yi did not seem to have anything else to ask him, so he left with Xin Yijie. Xin Yijie went to inform the Big 4 and the 10 kids, while Hong Zijuan went to arrange the reception for the Big 4 and the 10 kids. This time, as long as they could successfully summon the 4 big ones and 10 young ones to Jadian sect, then Jadian sect's position as the leader of the ancient small Jianghu would be unshakable. Previously, it was only a de facto leader, but after this matter, there would no longer be any problem in name. On the second day after Xin Yijie sent out the notice, Ma Zedong and Chen Biden from 5 Elements sect were the first to arrive at Jadian sect. After they left Jadian sect, they were still studying the true Qi alchemic fire along the way, so they didn't fly too far. After receiving the notice, they came back immediately, even earlier than Rising Heaven sect and Xuanji sect. Uncle Master, do you have any instructions for this disciple recruitment? Ma Zedong brought Chen Biden to greet Lin Yi as soon as they could, bowing respectfully. Lin Yi waved his hand, it's nothing special. Didn't I say that I'll be leaving the ancient Jianghu for a while? That's why I gathered everyone here to announce it in front of everyone. I don't want people to think that I'm gone. Ma Zedong immediately said passionately, don't worry, Grand Master. If anyone wants to make trouble at Jadian sect while Grand Master is away, our 5 Elements sect will be the first to deal with them. If they want to deal with Jadian sect, they have to destroy our 5 Elements sect first. That's right, our 5 Elements sect has received great kindness from Grand Master. No matter who it is, don't even think about touching a finger of Jadian sect. Chen Biden also echoed loudly. Judging from their expressions, it didn't seem like they were just being perfunctory. Speaking of kindness, the mental cultivation method and alchemy experience that Lin Yi taught them were indeed priceless treasures for the 5 Elements sect. It was normal for Ma Zedong and Chen Biden to be grateful. But more importantly, Lin Yi wasn't in Jadian sect, but there was still Yu Yi, a mysterious ascending stage powerhouse. Looking at his performance in the ancient grand meeting, he wasn't as easy to talk to as Lin Yi. Ma Zedong and Chen Biden weren't fools, Of course they knew how to choose. In addition to Jadian sect's own strength, there were also powerful allies like Immemorial Invincible and Shangguan clan. Ma Zedong didn't think that anyone would take things too hard and casually come to provoke Jadian sect. Taking the opportunity to express their loyalty, there was absolutely no risk. Lin Yi nodded with a smile and said, "Since you can think like this, my expectations for you guys have not been in vain. Oh right, there's something I want to ask you guys. Martial uncle, please ask, disciple will definitely tell you everything I know," Ma Zedong said without hesitation. Anyway, there were no secrets in Five Elements sect that couldn't be revealed. Those core secrets were just the mental cultivation method of alchemy. Lin Yi didn't care about it at all. It's like this, have you heard of purple mist lotus? Although it's used to reconstruct the body, it can also be regarded as a kind of elixir. Perhaps your Five Elements sect has records about it. Hong Zijuan said that he heard the news at the gathering of the 10 minor sect masters, but as one of the big four, Lin Yi felt that Ma Zedong might have more detailed information. If it's purple mist lotus, is it the Blue Sky Valley near the River of Divine Knowledge? Sure enough, Ma Zedong just thought for a little bit, and accurately said a few key words. Yes, it's the Blue Sky Valley. Do you know the specific location of the Blue Sky Valley? Lin Yi's eyes lit up, and immediately asked. I'm sorry, Martial Uncle, disciple really doesn't know, Ma Zedong said with a face full of regret. This was a rare opportunity to please Lin Yi. He really felt that it was a pity, so after thinking about it, he continued, legend has it that the Blue Sky Valley is near the River of Divine Knowledge, but people who have gone to look for the Blue Sky Valley have never found any clues, so disciple thinks that there should be some kind of restriction in the Blue Sky Valley, the kind that people who don't know will never find. This is very likely. Lin Yi was a little disappointed in his heart, and nodded casually, forget it, if there's a chance, I'll look for it again. Ma Zedong said with hesitation, Martial Uncle, disciple doesn't know whether I should say it or not. About the Blue Sky Valley? Lin Yi looked at Ma Zedong strangely, and said indifferently, if you have something to say, just say it, I won't blame you. Chapter 56-53. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, I know what you're talking about. It's just some poisonous gas. What's the big deal? 20. It'll be fine. No, Martial Uncle, you're wrong. Ma Zedong raised her head and said seriously, the poisonous gas is indeed fatal to cultivators, but for the primordial spirit, it's like purgatory. If ordinary people breathe in the poisonous gas, there may be some buffer time, but if the primordial spirit and primordial spirit are slightly contaminated, they may immediately disappear. There's such a thing. Lin Yi was also stunned when he heard this. He really hadn't heard of this. Did Ju Ying and the water lotus deliberately hide it? After thinking for a while, Lin Yi guessed with uncertainty, is this characteristic because of the existence of the amethyst lotus? Ma Zedong shook her head and said, disciple doesn't know. These are all legends, but the possibility of what Martial Uncle said is very high. This is because the amethyst nefarious lotus is the best material to reconstruct the body. Those who need the amethyst nefarious lotus are naturally powerful primordial spirits, so it's not strange for it to have special properties that specifically target primordial spirits. Chen Biden also interjected and advised, if Martial Uncle wants to rebuild the body, you really don't need to go to the Blue Sky Valley and take the risk. Although the amethyst lotus is the best material, there are other things that can be replaced. Even if the effect is not as good as the amethyst lotus, at least the risk is not as high. Thank you for your concern. I will consider this matter. Lin Yi smiled faintly and thanked the two. If he was the one who wanted to rebuild his body, he wouldn't have put so much effort into it. But since he was preparing it for the ghost, he had to prepare the best when he had the chance. Is the matter about the Blue Sky Valley and the amethyst lotus recorded in your sect? Lin Yi asked casually. If there were records in the ancient books, he might be able to find more clues. It was a pity that Ma Zedong also said that it was a rumor that happened many years ago. She even forgot where she heard it from. Lin Yi was helpless. He could only let the two of them have the opportunity to inquire more about this and find a substitute for the purple mist black lotus. If it didn't work, at least they could have a backup plan. In the evening, People from Soaring Sky sect and Xuanji sect arrived. This time, Xuanji sect did not make it into the top 10 youngsters. However, due to their relationship with Blue Cloud sect, they were still informed. As for the two sects from the North Island Alliance, Lin Yi had nothing to say. Since Blue Cloud sect had made it to the North Island Alliance, based on Shinji's temper, he would definitely drag these two brother sects along with him. At night, the people from the Snowsword sect had also arrived. They were Bing Wuqing and Lung Lung. The two of them had originally come to the Blue Cloud sect to look for Lin Yi, so after settling the matters of the Snowsword sect, they immediately came over. The moment Bing Wuqing saw Lin Yi, she uncharacteristically asked, "Boss, I heard that you're leaving the primordial underworld. Let me go with you." Lin Yi was startled. "You want to leave with me? What about the Snowsword faction?" "The Snowsword faction is counting on you now." Although the top 4 youngsters and top 10 youngsters had basically been integrated by Lin Yi, it was hard to say if there would be any changes after he left the primordial underworld. The Thousand Blades faction was so powerful in the past. It was precisely because of the disappearance of the primordial undefeatable underworld that they declined to the point where they could not even make it into the top 10 youngsters. "It's all right. I'll make the arrangements," Bing Wuqing said rather firmly. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. "All right, although I'd like to take you with me, it's a pity that you can't go to the place I'm going this time." Lung Lung looked like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. Finally, she could not help but ask, "Where are you going?" Lin Yi turned around and saw the anticipation in Lung Lung's eyes. Although this girl did not say it, it was obvious that she wanted to go with Lin Yi. "This time, I'm going back to where I came from. I can't take you there now. When I find a way next time, I'll come and take you there." Lin Yi did not need to hide anything from Bing Wuqing and Lung Lung, so he simply told them about the existence of Heaven Tier Island. Like Shinjie and the others, although they were shocked and curious about the situation on Heaven Tier Island, Bing Wuqing was not a talkative person, so she did not ask much in the end. However, Lung Lung knew about the existence of Heaven Tier Island, because Lin Yi had told her a story before. She thought it was just a story, but later she found out that it was Lin Yi's true identity. After the three of them talked for a while, Bing Wuqing and Lung Lung were dragged away by Lingshan, Wu Chentian, and the others. These were considered old friends, and there was no estrangement between them. On the other hand, Lin Yi continued to receive people from other sects. This night, a few people from the 10 small sects came, including the Calamity Master of Chenkuan sect. Calamity Master should have hated Lin Yi to the core, but in the face of Lin Yi's strength, Calamity Master wisely chose to compromise, so he was very respectful this time. Lin Yi was not a ruthless person. Since Calamity Master had given in, he no longer had the intention to go against Chenkuan sect. At noon the next day, it was the time that Shinjie had set for the 4 big and 10 small sects. At the last moment, everyone had arrived, including Lin Yi's hardcore supporters, the Shangguan clan, the Thousand Blades sect, the Chu family, the Yiling sect, etc. Lin Yi did not have the chance to talk to them one by one, so he greeted them first, and found another time to talk to them later. The banquet prepared by Hong Zijuan started on time, all kinds of exotic delicacies were served up like flowing water, but no one paid attention to the food. The immemorial grand meeting had just ended and Jadian's sect had once again gathered the higher-ups of the 4 big and 10 small sects. There must be something important to announce, and it would be related to all the sects. This matter was of course much more important than the food. Lin Yi stood up from his seat of honor and said, "Today, I have invited all the sect masters, family heads, and elders here because I have a few things to announce. There are some details that I need everyone to discuss together. Thank you all for your hard work. Master Lin, you're too kind. What's so hard about these small things? You're too kind, Grand Master. Just let us know if there's anything you need. Elder Lin, please speak your mind. We're all ears." All of a sudden, all the sect's higher-ups expressed their agreement. It was only after Lin Yi raised his hand and gestured for them to quiet down. Chapter 56-54. This was also very important for the trade of sea beast cores later, so Lin Yi emphasized this point. Other than the matter of the Ling Yu Immortal Meridian, the second thing is about the sea beast cores. 2 days ago, I went to the land of the Sea Beast King and saw the king of the sea beasts, the patriarch of the Sea Dragon clan, the Sea Dragon King. This is a sea dragon at the peak of the late stage of the mysterious Ascension realm. His real combat power is probably many times stronger than ordinary mysterious Ascension realm cultivators. He should be infinitely close to the early stage of the mountain opening realm. Hearing Lin Yi's words, everyone couldn't help but take a deep breath. Originally, the mysterious Ascension realm was already a legendary level, but this Sea Dragon King was already equivalent to the early stage of the mountain opening realm. Wasn't he almost at the level of a legend? Lin Yi waved his hand and said indifferently, "There's nothing strange about the Sea Dragon King's strength. I'm saying this to let you know what kind of existence there is in the deep sea of the sea beasts. If you hunt sea beasts in the future, don't go too deep, and it's forbidden to attack the royal family of the sea beasts. Because other than me, all the humans in the ancient small Jianghu can't bear the anger of the royal family of the sea beast." In fact, Lin Yi's words also indirectly hinted at what he was going to say next. In the future, Lin Yi would not be able to participate in the sea beast hunt, so this warning was still necessary. After everyone had digested this information, Lin Yi then said, "After seeing the Sea Dragon King, I reached an agreement with the royal family of the sea beasts. Every year, we will use human resources to exchange for a batch of sea beast cores. The number is 3,000. But this batch of cores will not be used to supply the quota for the Lingyu Immortal Meridian, but will only be given to the Five Elements sect to refine pills. If there's a need for pills, find the Blue Clouds sect to provide resources in exchange for the ratio of the cores. As for the specific details, you can ask Xin Yijie yourself later." Compared to the strength of the Sea Dragon King, the exchange of the cores was simply nothing. But after everyone realized this, they also knew that this was an extremely important opportunity, not inferior to the quota for the Lingyu Immortal Meridian. With the alchemy ability of the Five Elements sect, it would be difficult for them to consume all 3,000 inner cores of sea beasts within a year. It was impossible for them to have extra energy to accept alchemy commissions for other scattered inner cores of sea beasts. In other words, although there would be a large number of pills in the ancient small Jianghu in the future, they would basically be in the hands of the sects that participated in the exchange. In order to get the pills, other than participating, they would have to pay 10 times or even tens of times the price afterward. Lin Yi hadn't thought about this before, but in fact, after exchanging the pellets, this was the natural development. Since the Azure Cloud sect had control of this exchange channel, the Five Elements sect was completely tied to the Azure Cloud sect's chariot, which meant that they had a monopoly on the entire ancient Jianghu's elixir supply. If any sect didn't want to join in, the final development would only be widened by the sect in front of them, and eventually, they would be ruthlessly eliminated. After understanding this layer of cause and effect, everyone had made up their minds to get a certain share of this batch of cores no matter what. Fortunately, Lin Yi originally planned to develop the ancient small Jianghu, so Xin Yijie would not deny them this opportunity. "The last thing is my personal matter. I didn't intend to say it, but I should inform everyone here." Lin Yi gathered these people to announce his departure. Of course, he would not end it so easily. The higher-ups of the 4 big and 10 small sects put aside their calculations and listened to Lin Yi carefully. Today, Lin Yi was fully deserving of the number 1 person in the ancient small Jianghu. Every move he made would affect the development of the entire ancient small Jianghu. For example, the exchange of the pills just now. Therefore, Lin Yi's so-called personal matter, for them, must not be treated as a personal matter and ignored. Now that the ancient small Jianghu has been reshuffled, the power structure has taken shape and gradually stabilized. Moreover, we have reached an agreement with the sea beasts. As long as we don't go too far in killing, we won't offend the sea beasts. Therefore, there won't be any impact if I leave at this time. The personal matter I mentioned is to take this opportunity to say goodbye to everyone. "Martial uncle, where are you going?" Shangguan Qingyun was the first to stand up and asked in surprise. Shangguan Qingyun came late, so he had not had the time to talk to Lin Yi privately. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have told him the truth instead of standing up and asking questions. Lin Yi smiled faintly and casually said, "I'm going to investigate the center." Although the center's base at Q Luo Mountain was destroyed, The core people were not caught. If they are not eliminated, they will always be a problem in the future. The clue I got is that they have temporarily left the ancient small Jianghu, so I'm going with them. So that's how it is. Martial Uncle is really benevolent and righteous. I, Shangguan Qingyun, am willing to follow Martial Uncle to eliminate the remaining forces of the center. Shangguan Qingyun praised and immediately proposed to act with Lin Yi. Shangguan Feixing was by Shangguan Qingyun's side. Of course, he knew the reason why his father suddenly became a mysterious ascension stage. If he had the chance to follow Lin Yi, he would definitely not lose out. Master Lin is really chivalrous, working hard for the peace of the ancient small Jianghu. I am also willing to follow Master Lin and eliminate the remaining forces of the center. Elder Lin's righteous act is really touching. We are all willing to follow Elder Lin and contribute our own strength. Lin Yi suddenly sweated. He did not expect that the random excuse he found would make them so excited. It seemed that having too much prestige was not always a good thing. Thank you for your support, but this matter does not require too many people, because the center is best at hiding their tracks, so having more people may not be a good thing. On the contrary, if I am alone, I will have the greatest freedom and mobility, and it will be easier for me to find traces of the center. What do you all think? Lin Yi glared at Shangguan Qingyun and gestured for him to sit down and not cause trouble. Then, he appeased the people who wanted to follow him. In fact, these people might not really want to follow Lin Yi to kill the people of the center. After all, they were all the big shots of their respective sects. Chasing after people was too time-consuming. If it was not for the fact that they wanted to respond to Lin Yi, they would not have joined in the fun. Chapter 56-55. Facing such a situation, Lin Yi could only smile and nod his head. He then changed the topic. Alright, now that we're done here, everyone please eat your fill and enjoy the delicacies that we, the Green Cloud sect, have prepared for you. Please don't stand on ceremony and enjoy to your heart's content. The crowd roared in response, and they exchanged toasts with the people they were familiar with, starting to discuss the three things Lin Yi had mentioned. After raising his cup to everyone, Lin Yi excused himself from the banquet hall and called Shangguan Feixing and his son, as well as Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu to come out. Among the four great sects, Five Elements sect was the first to know that Lin Yi was going to leave. He had said all that he needed to, so now Lin Yi wanted to communicate with these two sects alone. After all, they were one of the most powerful forces that Lin Yi had left in the immemorial underworld. In the quiet room that had been prepared in advance, Lin Yi gestured for the four of them to sit down and said, "It's true that I'm leaving the immemorial underworld this time, but it's not for the reason that I said just now. Of course, I'll investigate the matter at the center, but the real reason is that I'm going back." Going back? Boss Lin Yi, where are you going? To the secular world? Ling Tianyu was the first to ask. Among the four of them, his relationship with Lin Yi was indeed the best. Lin Yi looked at Ling Tianyu in surprise. All along, Ling Tianyu had been calling him Brother Lin or Big Brother Lin. He didn't expect that he would suddenly call him Boss Lin Yi. Was he influenced by Bing Wuqing? However, Lin Yi didn't intend to correct Ling Tianyu. With his current status in the immemorial underworld, if Ling Tianyu continued to call Lin Yi brother, Primordial Invincible would probably not agree. Therefore, letting Ling Tianyu interact with him as Lin Yi's little brother was the best protection for Ling Tianyu. Primordial Invincible had no objections to Ling Tianyu's title. Being able to become Lin Yi's little brother was already a great honor for Ling Tianyu. In fact, it was Primordial Invincible's advice. It's not the secular world, but another space plane. It's a place very similar to the small Jianghu in ancient times. However, the mysterious ascending stage cultivators there are only ordinary cultivators, and the mountain opening stage is only the starting point of the giant realm. There are even more powerful existences there, but unfortunately, you can't go there for the time being. If there's a chance in the future, I'll look for a way to connect the two spaces and bring you guys along. Lin Yi didn't reveal too much about the Heaven Step Island. In any case, they wouldn't know about it even if he told them now, so a simple introduction was enough. No wonder you are so powerful. It turns out that you came from the upper space, Shangguan Feixing said with emotion. He wasn't too surprised about Lin Yi's origin, and even mentioned the upper space. However, Lin Yi himself didn't know whether the Heaven Step Island could be considered as the upper space of the small Jianghu in ancient times. If his speculation was correct, the Heaven Step Island should have been built by those legendary figures who disappeared in the small Jianghu in ancient times. Perhaps the Heaven Step Island was originally one with the small Jianghu in ancient times, but after the catastrophe 10,000 years ago, it was divided into two worlds. If this was the case, then there was no such thing as the upper space. Lin Yi even thought that if the two worlds were one in the past, then it was very likely that there was a hidden space channel. Even if there wasn't, as long as one had enough strength, it wasn't impossible to open a space channel, or build a transmission array between the two worlds. In short, they would definitely merge together in the end. Ling Tianyu revealed a trace of reluctance and said, "So, Boss Lin Yi, you can't bring people over? It would be great if I could follow you. My life, Ling Tianyu, was saved by Boss Lin Yi. I don't know when we can meet again after you go back." Lin Yi smiled and patted Ling Tianyu's shoulder, saying, "Don't show such an indecisive expression. Don't you want to revitalize the Thousand Blades sect? Then do it well. I might come back soon. When I come back, don't you still have no progress?" Ling Tianyu roused himself and nodded, saying, "Boss, don't worry. I definitely won't embarrass you. When you come back, the Thousand Blades sect will definitely become one of the four great sect." Lin Yi patted Ling Tianyu's shoulder again and nodded without saying anything. Everything was understood without words. Turning his head, Lin Yi said to Shangguan Feixing and Primordial Invincible, "The two of you are currently the strongest cultivators in the small Jianghu. From now on, the matters of the small Jianghu will need the two of you to take care of it. The Blue Cloud sect will also need the two of you to take care of it." Shangguan Feixing and Primordial Invincible hurriedly cupped their fists and bowed, saying, "You are too polite. This is what we should do. Actually, I'm not particularly worried. After all, there won't be anyone more powerful than you in the small Jianghu for the time being. However, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open but hard to guard against a stab in the dark. No one can say for sure whether Chenkuan's sect and Awakening Heaven's sect will use tricks to deal with us. You have to be careful. Also, Yu Yi, I'll leave him to guard the Blue Cloud sect. But if I'm not around, this guy might occasionally go crazy. At that time, I'll need the two of you to keep him in check." Lin Yi told them about his worries and concerns, especially about Yu Yi. Without Shangguan Feixing and Primordial Invincible, the Blue Cloud sect wouldn't be enough for him to deal with. "Yes, Grand Uncle, please rest assured. We will be careful." The two of them promised respectfully. With this double insurance, Lin Yi could really rest assured. "All right, you all go out and have a good meal. When I'm about to leave, I'll say goodbye to you," Lin Yi said with a smile and waved them out to eat. Then Lin Yi sent people to find the people of Chenkuan's sect and Awakening Heaven's sect respectively. He said a few words to them, and seeing that their attitudes were very good, he didn't say anything more. During this period, Duanmu Yu quietly came to find Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't hide it from her and told her his real whereabouts. Although Duanmu Yu was reluctant, she didn't feel too conflicted. She only asked Lin Yi to come back as soon as possible and find a way to bring her to Heavenly Island to have a look. Duanmu Yu and Lin Yi chatted for a while before getting up to leave. She also knew that Lin Yi was very busy now and it wasn't convenient to disturb him for too long. Although she didn't want to leave, she also didn't want to put Lin Yi in a difficult position. She could only leave by herself. Chapter 56-56. When Zhao Xiaodan came in, Lin Yi remembered the previous cave house, so he asked directly Zhao Xiaodan, "Do you remember the cave house you mentioned the first time I saw you? It's the cave house where you got the god-controlling bracelet and the inner core of the sea beast." Zhao Xiaodan looked embarrassed and said, "I remember, Senior Lin, why do you want to ask about this again?" "Oh, I don't need to say anything about the first time I saw you. I was afraid that you would miss something in that situation, so now I want to ask you again to see if you have anything to add. Lin Yi thought that at that time I used force to oppress you, you probably won't tell me the truth, so it's better to ask again. If I can find some clues in that cave house, maybe I can find a way to connect the Heavenly Stage Island and the ancient small Jianghu." Zhao Xiaodan became more and more embarrassed. He said that. Actually, Junior didn't lie. There's really nothing there, Senior Lin. You don't have to go. What's wrong with this Zhao Xiaodan? Does he not want to tell me? Lin Yi looked at Zhao Xiaodan with some confusion. It shouldn't be. Zhao Xiaodan has completely surrendered to him. There's no reason for him to hide it. I didn't say I want to go. Just tell me the details of this cave house, such as where it is, what the layout is inside, how big it is and so on. Zhao Xiaodan stole a glance at Lin Yi. His face was a little red and said, Senior Lin, it's best if you don't go. In fact, the first time, although I didn't lie, I did hide something. At that time, I deliberately kept you in suspense, just to arouse Senior Lin's interest, so that you would take the initiative to ask me about the cave house, then I would take the opportunity to get rid of you. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said, oh? So, that cave house is an extremely dangerous place. Do you think that if I go there, it's basically equivalent to suicide? Yes. That place is very dangerous, Senior Lin. If you go there, it's basically suicide. Zhao Xiaodan felt more at ease after saying it out loud. He simply continued, in fact, there's really nothing left in that cave abode. I acted like that just to lure Senior Lin to his death. Anyway, you went there yourself. Even if you don't die, you can't blame me, right? Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, that's not important. What you did at that time wasn't wrong. I won't haggle over it. Now, tell me, how dangerous is that place? Zhao Dan let out a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as Lin Yi didn't care about it. After thinking for a while, he continued, it's like this. The space inside the cave was very big, but inexplicably, there would always be some thunder and lightning appearing out of nowhere. It was obviously in the cave, and I didn't know where the thunder and lightning came from, but the power was extremely strong. Lin Yi frowned. Lightning appeared out of nowhere? This is a little strange. In fact, when we first went there was also a great perfection nascent soul grand elder from the Heaven Awakening sect with us. However, such a peak expert was killed by a bolt of lightning. That was the great perfection nascent soul grand elder. He was the top existence in the small immemorial underworld. He couldn't even resist it for a while. If it wasn't so, Qi Dani might not have gone to the center for help this time, right? Zhao Dan said as he went astray. Lin Yi didn't care about Qi Dani or the great elder of the Heaven Awakening sect. He was now concerned about the lightning that appeared out of nowhere. Wait a minute. Did you just say thunder and lightning? The thunder and lightning that appeared out of nowhere in the cave instantly killed a great perfection nascent soul grand elder? Lin Yi's heart surged with a feeling of absurdity. Did the people of the small immemorial underworld never know that they could actually advance to the profound ascension stage? In this kind of scene, Lin Yi's first reaction was the Thunder Plain Island on the Heavenly Stage Island. That was where the Thunder Tribulation was located to advance to the profound ascension stage. The cave that Zhao Dan spoke of, why did it feel like the Thunder Tribulation used to advance to the profound ascension stage? That's right, this junior said so. Zhao Dan didn't know what happened to Lin Yi, so he could only nod and reply with a dumbfounded face. Lin Yi pondered for a moment, then said to Zhao Dan, you have aroused my interest, now take me to the cave to have a look. Ah! Zhao Dan was dumbfounded. I said so much just to tell you not to go. How did it become arousing your interest? Can your interest not be so strange? Lin Yi didn't care what Zhao Xiaodan was thinking. He didn't plan on going at all, but after hearing Zhao Xiaodan's description, it was impossible not to go. Only by seeing it with his own eyes could he be sure that the place was as he imagined it to be. When Zhao Dan heard that Lin Yi wanted him to take him to the cave to have a look, he was dumbfounded on the spot. He clearly saw how the great elder of the Heaven Awakening sect died. That kind of terrifying feeling, Zhao Dan really didn't want to experience it a second time. Lin Yi glanced at Zhao Dan faintly and said, what? You don't want to take me there? Zhao Dan said with a sad face, Senior Lin, didn't I say that that place is too dangerous? Why do you have to go there? That's thunder and lightning. For the primordial spirit, the same thunder and lightning will be more terrifying than hitting the body. You don't need to worry about this, you just need to take me there, Lin Yi said in an unquestionable tone. Zhao Dan knew that he couldn't change Lin Yi's mind, so he could only nod and agree with a bitter smile. Wait a moment, I'll settle things here, then go to the cave with you to have a look. Lin Yi planned to leave the primitive small Jianghu directly after seeing the cave and not return to the Green Cloud sect in the North Island. So before leaving, he still had to say goodbye to everyone. Zhao Dan, of course, didn't have any objections. He thought to himself, take your time to settle down, I don't mind waiting. I don't mind waiting until the end of time, as long as you don't ask me to bring you there. Lin Yi had basically met with the representatives of the 4 big and 10 small schools, and everything he needed to do was done, so now he only needed to inform Xin Yijie and the others. Lin Yi didn't say that he was going to look for the cave. He said goodbye to Xin Yijie, Hong Zijuan, Jin Wei Feng, and the others and went to find Lingshan and the others. Duanmu Yu and Cooled were also with them. Chapter 56-57. Lin Yi smiled. Then I'll see how you perform. If you guys still don't improve, I'll fire you. No way. That cruel? Boss, we're wrong, alright? Wu Chuntian's wackiness immediately washed away the faint sorrow of parting, and everyone burst into laughter. Lingshan came up and gave Lin Yi a big hug. Lin Yi's wives weren't here, so she was the one with the most power here. It wasn't easy to get a chance like this, of course she wouldn't let it go. You have to come back soon, the dummy girl's waiting for you. Lingshan's face was red as she whispered into Lin Yi's ear. Lin Yi hugged Lingshan back, smiling. I will. Ziyu's eyes flickered a couple of times, waiting for Lingshan to leave Lin Yi's embrace. She rushed up and jumped into Lin Yi's embrace. Lin Yi bro, you promised my brother you'd take care of me, but you've been throwing me aside this whole time. If you don't come back soon, my brother's going to tell on you when he wakes up. Ziyu hugged Lin Yi tighter, trying to come up with some random excuse just so she could stay in this warm embrace a little longer. Lin Yi patted her head, smiling. Alright, since when did you learn to act cute? This isn't like you at all. Ziyu hemphed, too embarrassed to stay in Lin Yi's embrace any longer. She got up and stomped her feet. I'm not joking with you. If you don't come back soon, I'll tell my brother. Got it, I'll come back soon. Lin Yi smiled lovingly, patting her head. Thinking of her brother, Armadillo, he couldn't help but feel sad. Also, Lin Yi bro, you have to find Chen Shi soon. I miss Chen Shi. Ziyu suddenly said, a little sad. She still hadn't heard from Chen Shi yet. Lin Yi put away his smile and nodded solemnly. I'll find Chen Shi for sure. Don't worry, I won't let her get hurt. Although he said that, Lin Yi didn't have much confidence. On Sky Class Island, Lin Yi's name wasn't at the top yet, but he was definitely famous. There was practically no one in the younger generation who could compare to him. Chen Shi should have been able to find out about Lin Yi by now, but she hadn't been able to contact him. If it wasn't an accident, then he must have been teleported to an isolated place. No matter what, Lin Yi had to do everything he could to find Chen Shi and the others. The more time passed, the higher the chance of accidents happening. Duanmu Yu waited for Ziyu to finish before walking up and giving Lin Yi a big hug. She smiled. Take care, I'll wait for you with Lingshan, Ziyu, and Leng Leng. Lin Yi nodded and patted Duanmu Yu's back. You take care too, we'll see each other soon. After letting go of Duanmu Yu, Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Leng Leng. Leng Leng turned her head away, but she was secretly observing Lin Yi's movements from the corner of her eyes. It was obvious that she wanted to bid farewell to Lin Yi, but her cold personality made it difficult for her to do so, and she didn't know what to do. Lin Yi smiled and pulled Leng Leng into a hug. He whispered in her ear, "Wait for me, it won't be long." When she was first pulled over, Leng Leng's body was still a little stiff. However, after coming into contact with Lin Yi's embrace, she quickly relaxed. After hearing Lin Yi's words, Leng Leng didn't know what to say. It seemed that all she could say had been said by the 3 people in front of her. Hence, she only let out a soft hum and quietly enjoyed the warmth before parting. Bing Wuqing, who was beside Leng Leng, had a cold expression on her face. She almost had the words "I don't need your hug" written on her face. When she saw Lin Yi's eyes turn to her, she immediately said expressionlessly, "Boss, I'll take care of Leng Leng. Don't worry and go." The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. If he didn't know Bing Wuqing's character very well, He would really think that she had been possessed by Yu Yi. How could she say such vicious words so naturally? But obviously, Bing Wuching herself didn't understand what she said. In her opinion, she just said a very ordinary sentence, and it was all the truth. What was the problem? Yu Yi held back his laughter. He thought to himself, little bastard Lin Yi, even your little brother hopes that you can go in peace. Then you can go in peace. Just leave everything in the immemorial underworld to master you. Of course, he could only think this in his heart. Yu Yi didn't dare to say it out loud. Lin Yi could tolerate Bing Wuching's unintentional slip of the tongue, but he would never let Yu Yi go. Was this the difference between a little brother and a slave? Yu Yi was almost angered by his own thoughts. Even if Lin Yi was beaten to death, there was no way that Lin Yi could understand this train of thought. Yu Yi squeezed out a fake expression of reluctance and opened his arms to give Lin Yi a big hug. Lin Yi turned his head away and pushed his face aside with his palm. What a good feeling of parting, and a faint sadness. Why did he suddenly find Yu Yi's expression so funny? He didn't realize that Yu Yi looked so funny. No matter what, Lin Yi had bid farewell to everyone. Then, he brought Languja with him and went to the cave under Zhao Dan's lead. The location of the cave was an uninhabited island in the boundless sea. From the environment, it was somewhat similar to the Tai Shi Island. This also reminded Lin Yi that he still had a little brother of the Tai Shi spirit there. He didn't have time this time, but he would still go and have a look when he had the chance next time. During this period of time, Lin Yi had already refined 5 of the malignant tumors in his consciousness and was refining the 6th one. He had also eaten 6 consciousness fruits. This was also thanks to the Tai Shi spirit. Otherwise, these malignant tumors would definitely be a huge hidden danger for Lin Yi, and he didn't know when they would erupt. Senior Lin, this is the location of the cave. At the center of the island is the crater of a dormant volcano. There's a concealment spell there. Most people wouldn't be able to find any traces of the cave even if they walked over there. Zhao Dan came here and felt a little guilty, but he still tried his best to introduce the place to Lin Yi. Chapter 56-58. Zhao Xiantian smiled bitterly and said, "Of course not, we just happened to come here by chance. We came here because the 3 of us formed a team to kill a nascent soul stage sea beast and wanted to find the 5-element sect to refine a nascent soul golden pill. Although the Supreme Elder of the Heaven Awakening sect doesn't need the nascent soul golden pill, he owed Yin Chencheng a favor and Yin Chencheng gave him a generous reward, so he came together. In the Endless Sea, there are countless islands like this. You guys are really lucky to be able to find this place." Languza chuckled as he spoke. For a member of the royal family of sea beasts like him, the number of islands he had seen could be counted in the tens of thousands. However, he had never heard of any abodes being discovered. Zhao Xiantian smiled apologetically and said, "We were really lucky. Because we were chasing a nascent soul stage sea beast, the 3 of us came to this island and followed the sea beast into the crater of the volcano. After triggering the restrictions, we accidentally entered the cave dwelling." He suddenly remembered that the blue flood dragon in front of him was a royal family of sea beasts. It didn't seem very good to say that they were chasing a sea beast, so Zhao Xiantian secretly looked at Languja. When he didn't see any strange expression on Languja's face, he let out a sigh of relief. As the 2 people and the flood dragon spoke, they arrived at the crater of the extinct volcano at the center of the island. Lin Yi stood at the edge. Whether it was with his divine sense or his eyes, he didn't find anything strange. It was just an ordinary crater. Because there hadn't been an eruption for a long time, there was a thick pile of volcanic rocks inside, almost blocking the crater. Zhao Xiaotian pointed to a hidden spot at the mouth of the volcano and said, "Senior Lin, that place is the place that, when we were careless and touched it, the restrictions at the mouth of the volcano fluctuated slightly, allowing us to see the entrance of the cave inside. What's amazing is that before we triggered the restrictions, we couldn't find the entrance no matter how we looked. But once we saw it, we could easily enter." Lin Yi looked at where Zhao Xiantian was pointing. That location was blocked by a protruding volcanic rock. It was impossible to see it clearly from the crater. When Zhao Xiantian said that, he was obviously talking about hunting sea beasts. Because he was worried about Languja, he didn't say it in detail. Those who didn't know better would think that he was talking about when he peed. According to Zhao Dan's explanation, the sea beast that was being chased by the three of them should have escaped here and entered the crater to hide. Then, it accidentally touched the restriction, allowing them to discover the cave inside. Because of this, the Supreme Elder of the Enlightening Heavens faction directly fell inside. Indeed, fortune and misfortune came hand in hand. No one could say for sure whether they had encountered a fortuitous encounter or a crisis. Thank you for leading the way. Now, the two of us will explore it ourselves. You can go back now, Lin Yi said to Zhao Xiaodan with a faint smile. He could also see that Zhao Xiaodan did not want to enter this dangerous cave again, so he did not force Zhao Xiaodan. Anyway, there was no problem as long as he could enter. Zhao Xiao felt relieved. If Lin Yi wanted him to go in, he would risk his life to follow. However, since Lin Yi was so considerate of his feelings, he would not force himself to go in. Senior Lin, you are too polite. This is what I should do, Zhao Xiaodan said gratefully. Then, as if he thought of something, he said, oh yes, there is something I forgot to tell Senior Lin. Our evil warding sect has a vice sect master. Senior Lin should know him. His name is Fei Yangsheng. If Senior Lin needs our help in the future, and I am not in the sect, you can directly look for vice sect master Fei Yangsheng. Fei Yangsheng? He is already a vice sect master? Lin Yi nodded. He knew that Zhao Xiaodan was trying to curry favor with him. He didn't know where Zhao Xiaodan heard that Fei Yangsheng was also a follower of Lin Yi, so he directly promoted Fei Yangsheng to vice sect master. Regarding this, Lin Yi didn't have any special thoughts. He smiled and asked about Fei Yangsheng's recent situation. Then, he sent Zhao Xiaodan away. Lin Yi casually sent out a stream of pure energy, lightly hitting the position of the mechanism. As expected, the volcanic rocks in the crater started to ripple like water, forming circles of transparent ripples. As the ripples spread out, in between each circle, the volcanic rocks and the image of a dark hole appeared. That should be the entrance to the cave abode. Let's go in. Lin Yi turned and called out to Languzha. Then, they directly rushed towards the entrance of the cave abode. Zhao Xiaodan was right. Lin Yi and Languzha successfully rushed into the cave abode. In front of them were two tightly shut bronze doors. These two doors were already covered with greenish-black copper rust. However, it did not affect the ancient and desolate aura it contained. It really is an antique. What's the use of these two doors? Languzha mumbled to himself. Then, he went forward and pushed with his two claws. He easily pushed open the two bronze doors. Because Zhao Xiaodan and the other two had been here before, there was no problem for the bronze doors to open easily. This was the reason why Lin Yi felt at ease and let Languzha open the doors. Boss, it's so dark inside. I can't see anything. If I had known this earlier, I would have brought a few night luminescent pearls from Flood Dragon Island. After the bronze doors opened, Languzha went straight in. He didn't care about the dangers inside. Given his strength and the strength of his body, few people in the primordial underworld could hurt him. Lin Yi followed him in unhurriedly, reminding him along the way, Languzha, don't go in too deep. We don't know what dangers lie in there. You should come back and check out the situation first. Boss, don't worry. I know what I'm doing, Languzha replied. However, he still didn't have any intention of coming back. He just slowed down his pace a lot. It seemed like he wanted to wait for Lin Yi to come back. Lin Yi released his divine sense. Although he was in the darkness, his divine sense wasn't blocked. Therefore, it didn't affect Lin Yi too much. It's so empty inside. It seems like there's really nothing left. Lin Yi came to Languzha's side and said as they continued to walk forward slowly. Languzha laughed and said, Boss, even if there was something here, it must have been taken away by Zhao Xiaodan. That's why it looks so empty. Chapter 56-59. Hey, boss, do you smell anything? Languzha suddenly stopped, turned his head and sniffed around. Lin Yi was speechless. You are a sea serpent, not General Weiwu. Why are you acting like a big dog? However, looking at Languzha's solemn look, Lin Yi also sniffed subconsciously, but he did not find any special smell. Even if there was, it was the smell of seawater on Languja's body. What do you smell? Lin Yi also stopped, and his divine sense searched more carefully, but he still found nothing. I can't tell what this smell is. It's faint, but somewhat familiar. Is it the nidin of a sea beast? Languja stretched out his claws and scratched his head, saying with some uncertainty. He heard Lin Yi mention before that Zhao Dan and the others had obtained a sea beast nidin of the mystical ascending stage here. Maybe what he smelled was the smell of another sea beast nidin? After all, Languja was the royal family of sea beasts, so he must be very familiar with the smell of sea beast nidin. Languja, can you determine where the smell is coming from? Although Lin Yi did not find anything, he would not easily doubt Languja's words, so he patted Languja's body and asked him to try to find the source of the smell. Languja nodded and said, "Boss, let me try. This smell is a bit scattered, I may not be able to find it." After speaking, Languja sniffed hard and swayed around. After a while, he seemed to have found the right direction and began to move along a straight line. Lin Yi was secretly surprised. He had never heard of a sea serpent having a dog-like nose, but this was not important. What was important was what Languja could find. Another mystical ascending stage sea beast nidin? After a while, Languja stopped in front of a huge rock, walked around the rock, and then said to Lin Yi with certainty, "Boss, it's inside this rock. The feeling is stronger now, it's definitely right." Lin Yi suspiciously scanned the huge rock in front of him with divine sense, but he did not find anything. The inside of this rock was extremely normal, and divine sense could completely penetrate it. "Boss, step aside, let me break this rock." Languja's own divine sense couldn't find any traces of what might be inside the rock, but his strange sense of smell made him unwilling to give up. In fact, Languja had never felt that his sense of smell was sensitive before, but today, he didn't know what was going on. The faint smell lingered in his nose all the time, and he couldn't get rid of it at all. Lin Yi obviously didn't notice it at all. Only he could smell it. Lin Yi also felt that this matter was a bit strange, but the jade pendant didn't give any warning. There shouldn't be any danger, so he took 2 steps back and let Languja deal with this huge rock. Languja didn't use any complex and advanced martial arts. He directly used his tyrannical body to deal with the rock. With a swing of his thick tail, a large piece of rock was smashed. After a few consecutive lashes, this huge rock suddenly fell apart. Languja used his divine sense as an eye and stretched out his 2 claws to dig a few times. He found a piece of gravel the size of a millstone. "Boss, it's here. The smell is getting stronger and stronger." Languja turned his head and pointed to the stone and said to Lin Yi. Although it was dark, Lin Yi could still clearly see his every move. The problem was that Lin Yi still couldn't smell anything, and he couldn't tell what was different about the rock that Languja was holding with his 2 claws. "Languja, you open this stone carefully and see what is inside." Lin Yi stepped forward and touched the stone. Languja agreed. He held the stone with 1 claw and slid his other claw on the stone. The sharp claws easily left a clear mark on the stone and then slowly fell off. As the small stones fell, a small black jade box slowly appeared. Lin Yi was also a little stunned. There was really something in this stone. If Languja didn't follow him, Lin Yi would never notice the existence of this black jade box because he couldn't find it at all. Languja held the black jade box and came to Lin Yi's side. He laughed and said, "Boss, look, I told you there was something in it. My nose is really too amazing." Lin Yi smiled slightly. He thought in his heart that you and General Weiwu would have a lot in common in the future. Languja handed the black jade box to Lin Yi and then looked at it eagerly. He had tried to open this jade box just now, but he couldn't find the opening mechanism no matter how hard he tried. He wanted to use brute force to open it, but he was afraid of hurting the thing in the jade box. After all, he could smell it. Languja didn't dare to simply touch it, so he could only pin his hope on Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked at the black jade box in his hand with a strange expression. When he scanned it with his divine sense, he could see the size and shape of the jade box clearly. However, when he wanted to go deeper into it, his divine sense passed through it directly as if he was holding a ball of air in his hand. This situation made Lin Yi very suspicious. Was everything he saw in this dark space real? Could it be that everything in the darkness, in Lin Yi's consciousness, was actually missing a large part of it? Thinking of this, Lin Yi simply lit up an alchemy fire to illuminate the surroundings. The surrounding environment was immediately reflected in his eyes and overlapped with what he saw with his divine sense. Originally, because it was the same with divine sense, Lin Yi was too lazy to think of a way to light up the place. Now, in this situation, he had to use his naked eyes to observe. Fortunately, after seeing it clearly, there didn't seem to be anything different, which made Lin Yi feel more at ease. Looking at the smooth body of the jade box, there was no lock or anything like that. He raised his hand and shook it a few times. There was a slight sound inside. Obviously, there was something inside the jade box. He touched it inch by inch with his hand and there wasn't even a small crack. It was as if it was a piece of natural black jade. This jade box is really strange. I don't know what is inside. Just the jade box itself can be considered as a good treasure. Lin Yi tried to open it but couldn't, so he could only pass it back to Languja. After all, this was something he found, so it wasn't good for Lin Yi to take it for himself. Chapter 5660. Lin Yi looked at Languja in astonishment. He just said that this jade box was a good treasure, and this guy immediately destroyed it. But Lin Yi was relieved in the blink of an eye. There was no point in holding on to this jade box anyway. He might as well just open it and see what was inside. Languza's decisiveness was really like a ruthless man, a ruthless dragon. Boss, I didn't mean it. I didn't expect this thing to be so hard to hold. Languja looked at Lin Yi awkwardly, with a look of bewilderment. Lin Yi was speechless. You didn't mean it. I was just about to praise you for being a decisive, ruthless dragon. Forget it, if it's broken, then it's broken. Lin Yi waved his hand carelessly and focused his attention on what Languja was holding in his claws. In addition to the fragments of the black jade box, there was a thin book in the middle of Languja's claws. The paper was made of an unknown material, but it was extraordinarily tough. Languja's claws did not cause any damage to it. And what emitted pure spiritual power was a fist-sized blue-gold sea beast's Niden. Judging from the strength of the spiritual power, Lin Yi speculated that it was at least at the peak of the mysterious ascension middle stage. However, Lin Yi was not too interested in this Niden. Although the Niden of the mysterious ascension middle stage was rare, Lin Yi did not need it at the moment. On the contrary, Lin Yi felt that the book would be a good gain. This is the Niden of our sea serpent clan. Languja suddenly showed a sad expression, looked at the blue-gold sea beast Niden, and murmured. Only then did Lin Yi understand. So it was the inner core of the sea serpent clan. No wonder Languja could sense it. He probably didn't smell anything. It was just that the inner core of the same clan had formed some sort of mysterious connection with him, causing him to feel that he smelled a faint scent. Languja, are you all right? It was also the first time that Lin Yi saw Languja with such an expression. He had always been carefree, so Lin Yi didn't know what to say for a while. Languja was stunned. I'm fine. Boss, what's wrong? Lin Yi almost suspected that he had seen wrongly just now. This guy didn't show any sadness at all, did he? Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to say anything more. He pointed at the book in Languja's hand and said, It's fine. Let me have a look at the book in your hand. You can deal with the inner core of your ancestors yourself. Languja replied with an O, using his other claw to pick up the book and pass it to Lin Yi. Then, he slapped away the black jade shards at the side of the core, casually tossing the core of the middle-stage mystic ascension dragon into his mouth and gulping it down. Lin Yi held the book and looked at Languja in a daze. What happened to the ancestor of the clan? He just swallowed it in one gulp. Languja grinned and said, Boss, what are you so surprised about? The Niden of our sea serpent clan is a kind of inheritance. The ancestor left the Niden to the younger generation, which is equivalent to his spirit not dying, so I swallowed this Niden as the greatest respect to the ancestor. The first law of sea beasts was that the strong preyed on the weak. The reason why the sea serpent dragons were able to become the royalty of the sea beasts was not only because of their powerful innate talent, but also because of this method of inheritance. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, So that's how it is. Then you can digest it yourself. I'll study this book. Languja sat up and began to refine the Niden of the sea serpent clan. Originally, the sea beasts didn't like Nidens very much because the efficiency was too low. But the Niden of the sea serpent clan was different. Although the spiritual power contained in it couldn't improve Languja's strength too much, he could obtain some memory inheritance from this Niden. Maybe he could awaken some talent skills. Lin Yi didn't care about Languja and opened the cover of the book. There were 5 big words written on the cover: Essence of Lightning Gathering Formation. Formation? Lin Yi didn't know whether he should be happy or sigh. He really didn't know much about formations. This essence of lightning gathering formation sounded very powerful, but it wasn't very useful to him because he couldn't understand it at all. Although that was the case, seeing that Languja was still digesting the Niden, Lin Yi thought that since he had nothing to do, he might as well continue to read it. What he didn't expect was that the opening chapter of the Essence of Lightning Gathering Formation didn't directly talk about lightning gathering formation. Instead, it talked about the most basic formation summary and explained it clearly. Even a beginner formation like Lin Yi could easily understand it. Lin Yi's interest was immediately piqued. After all, formations were extremely rare on Sky-class Island, and almost no one knew about them. If it wasn't for the ghost's memory, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to break through Tian Tian's one-step sky ascension. So this made Lin Yi sink his whole mind into the essence of lightning gathering formation. After all, if he encountered a formation again in the future, he wouldn't panic. After a long time, Lin Yi finished reading this thin book and sighed. So lightning gathering formation is an artificial thunder retribution point. Its power is not inferior to the natural thunder retribution point on the thunderous plain island. If it's properly controlled, it can also be used as an offensive killing formation. It's really an eye-opener. At the end of the book, it was also mentioned that there was a lightning gathering formation here. The Supreme Elder of the Enlightenment faction probably entered the lightning gathering formation by mistake and was killed. If he had a Thunder Shen core, he might be able to directly advance to the Profound Ascension stage. Boss, what's the use of a lightning gathering formation thunder retribution point? Languja had already digested the Niden. His aura was also a lot stronger. He had already entered the peak of the early Profound Ascension stage. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said, "That's what we humans use to advance to the Profound Ascension stage. You see, dragons have a chance to directly advance to the Profound Ascension stage after reaching adulthood, but we humans have to go through thunder retribution. So lightning gathering formation is indispensable." Speaking of which, the sea serpents were indeed blessed by the heavens. Evolving from a sea serpent to a sea serpent was a transformation, and evolving from a sea serpent to a sea dragon was another transformation. Each transformation allowed them to break through the limits of a big level. Lin Yi wondered if they'd become stronger after going through the lightning calamity. Chapter 5661. As for the possible danger, Lin Yi didn't think that there would be any. First of all, Languja was already at the peak of the early stage of Mysterious Ascension Realm. As a member of the Sea Serpent clan, his body was much stronger than a human's. Even if he could withstand a few lightning tribulations, Lin Yi didn't have much else, but he had enough medicinal pills. One Thunder Profound pill was enough to make Languja completely safe. Although Lin Yi had read the essence of the lightning gathering array, it was obviously impossible for him to set up a lightning gathering array himself. The materials were a problem, and so was Lin Yi's formation skills. Fortunately, the lightning gathering array here had already been set up. Even if it had been in disrepair for a long time, Lin Yi could still repair it. Languja, let's continue. There's a lightning gathering array here. When we find it, I'll let you try it. Lin Yi didn't intend to hide it and said directly to Languja. Languja asked doubtfully, "Boss, how do I try it? See if I'll be struck by lightning?" "If you put it like that, there's no problem." Lin Yi looked at Languja and smiled lightly. "Boss, can I choose not to try it?" Languja's mind was filled with the image of himself being struck black like charcoal with smoke coming out of his body. He immediately asked carefully with a bitter expression. Lin Yi nodded and said, "Of course you can. This is your right. But if you don't want to try it, you can go back to Serpent Island now. Otherwise, You'll be struck by lightning. Boss, where is the lightning gathering array? My body is a little itchy. I want to go and see what it feels like to bathe in lightning. Languja had an expression of duty. He looked left and right for the damn lightning gathering array. Compared to returning to Serpent Island, being struck by lightning a few times was completely acceptable. Lin Yi laughed and shook his head. Would this fellow refuse to leave the thunder gathering array after learning about the benefits of the thunder tribulation? While speaking, Lin Yi brought Languja to the front of another rock wall. He stretched out his finger and used his true chi to touch the rock wall a few times. The rock wall rippled, revealing a passage. The essence of the lightning gathering array mentioned the way to enter the lightning gathering array. Lin Yi followed the instructions in the book and found the node of the array easily. However, what Lin Yi couldn't understand was how Zhao Quan and Yin Chencheng had managed to enter the lightning gathering array. If it was someone who didn't understand array formations, they wouldn't even be able to find the entrance to this passageway. Could it be that they had stumbled upon it by accident? However, it was also possible that the array had been in disrepair for a long time and had loosened a bit. Perhaps they didn't need to use any special methods to break in. Just as they entered the passageway, a lightning bolt suddenly descended, twisting and striking the top of Lin Yi's head. If it had struck, Lin Yi's primordial spirit would have suffered. It might even have directly collapsed. Fortunately, Lin Yi was already prepared. A similar lightning bolt appeared above his head, intercepting the previous lightning bolt. After a few crackling sounds, it dissipated. Languja shrunk his head. He could feel that this lightning bolt wasn't a fatal threat to him, but if it struck his body, it would definitely hurt. If Lin Yi hadn't insisted, then Languja definitely wouldn't have stepped into the lightning gathering array. It seems that the lightning gathering array has been damaged. The lightning has already escaped from the array. Lin Yi nodded, confirming his guess. He turned around and took out a Thunder Shen pill and handed it to Languja. Eat it. Languja didn't suspect anything and directly took it and threw it into his mouth. His trust in Lin Yi could be seen from this. Lin Yi nodded and continued to lead Languja forward. At the same time, he also increased his vigilance. This passageway wasn't long, only about 100 steps. However, lightning would appear at almost every step. It was simply an enhanced version of a frightening step. Even if Lin Yi was prepared, it was still a bit difficult to deal with. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to move quickly. If he couldn't accurately intercept the lightning, Lin Yi didn't know what would happen. If his body was here, of course, the lightning wouldn't be a threat. However, he didn't dare to take risks with his primordial spirit. After walking out of the passageway with great difficulty, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly opened up. When he looked up, he could see the cloudy sky. There were cliffs surrounding it, forming a valley that was neither too big nor too small. At the most central position, there was a clear array pattern emitting light, constantly circulating. Lightning gathering array. After so many years, it's still operating on its own. It's really amazing, Lin Yi exclaimed and began to observe the damaged areas of the lightning gathering array. Normally, a complete array wouldn't let people see the array pattern because it was easy to catch the nodes of the array and destroy it. Therefore, when he saw the array pattern, Lin Yi could confirm that the lightning gathering array was damaged. However, even a damaged lightning gathering array could attract quite a lot of lightning. With the lightning gathering array essence in hand, Lin Yi could easily observe the array. After all, finding the damaged areas was countless times easier than setting up a new one. Soon, he found something. On one of the nodes of the lightning gathering array, the array pattern was broken. This caused the entire array to be unable to circulate at this point. It could only be diverted to another path. Because of this, the entire lightning gathering array was affected. Lin Yi focused on guarding against the lightning falling from the sky. At the edge of the array, the lightning was much denser than in the passageway. Only Lin Yi could use lightning to restrain it. If it was someone else, they might not be able to get close to this damaged node of the array. The foundation of the array uses spiritual jades as its power source. So that's how it is. The spiritual jades are only the initial power source. After the array is activated, the excess lightning energy will be channeled into the ground to replenish the spiritual jades. Therefore, the spiritual jades will never run out. It's almost a perpetual array. Lin Yi studied the damaged array foundation and suddenly let out a low sigh. In the lightning gathering array essence, only the arrangement of the array foundation wasn't mentioned in detail. Perhaps it was because the array foundation couldn't be set up artificially and had to be found in a naturally formed location? Or was the author of the array essence hiding something? However, it didn't matter much because the array foundation wasn't damaged. Lin Yi glanced at the broken array pattern. He didn't know if this node was damaged first, causing the array pattern to break, or if the array pattern broke first, causing the spiritual jades to be unable to replenish their energy. In any case, if he wanted to repair it, he had to first repair the array foundation. Chapter 56-62. The dark clouds in the sky churned, and the scattered thunder and lightning gathered again, concentrating in the transparent cover of the thunder-gathering array. Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. The thunder-gathering array was finally repaired. When the lines were completely hidden, the operation of the thunder-gathering array was also on the right track. Lin Yi, who had retreated, turned to Languja and said, "You can go in now. Don't worry, nothing will happen." Languja looked at the thunder and lightning falling from the thunder-gathering array. He did not believe that nothing would happen to him after going in, but since it was Lin Yi who said it, Languja did not continue to hesitate. He gritted his teeth and rushed into the thunder-gathering array. The moment he entered the lightning-gathering matrix, a bolt of lightning accurately struck Languja. His entire slender body was covered in tiny leaping lightning arcs. However, the destructive damage that he expected did not appear. On the contrary, Languja felt a numbing sensation all over his body. It was so comfortable that he could not describe it in words. "Ha ha ha ha, boss, did you see that? I'm really bathing in thunder and lightning. It's so comfortable." Languja burst into laughter as the continuous thunder and lightning fell. He even had the leisure to wave his hands and shout at Lin Yi outside the array. Lin Yi smiled faintly. This was all within his calculations. Languja's body was incomparably strong, and with the help of the Thunder Xian pill, the thunder and lightning in the thunder-gathering array could cleanse his body. Although Languja's body had been modified by Lin Yi's vital qi, the potential contained in it was not something that Lin Yi could stimulate. This time, the thunder and lightning baptism could complete this crucial step, allowing Languja to undergo a fundamental transformation. Hehe, it's really effective. Languja has already begun to evolve. I wonder how much stronger this guy will become after he transforms into a sea dragon. Lin Yi looked at Languja, who was tossing and turning in the lightning within the lightning-gathering matrix, his eyes filled with gratification. Languja was also very excited. With every lightning bolt that fell on his body, he could clearly feel that he had become a lot stronger. This kind of improvement speed was simply unheard of. Languja also finally understood why Lin Yi insisted that he enter the lightning-gathering array to try. When the third claw grew out of Languja's lower abdomen, Languja finally couldn't contain his excitement. He couldn't help but roar towards the sky, and the faint sound of a dragon's roar shook the valley. Lin Yi could not help being visibly moved too as he said, "This guy really has limitless potential." Just by going through the baptism of the lightning tribulation and completing the evolution, his strength directly jumped from the peak of the early mysterious ascension stage to the late mysterious ascension stage in one fell swoop. In the entire Sea Dragon clan, probably only the Sea Dragon King can be stronger than him, right? Originally, when Languja transformed into a sea dragon, he would not have risen by 3 levels in one go. Even counting the 1 level that he had just risen by because of the Niden, he had risen by 4 levels in a row. There were still many factors that combined together to form this. For example, after the potion in the center forcibly increased Languja's strength level, it began to cause Languja's body to begin to collapse at the genetic level. In fact, the root cause was that Languja's physical body was not strong enough to withstand the power of the potion. In other words, before the power of the potion could be fully exerted, it was unreasonably suppressed by Lin Yi's universal true qi. Then, while the universal true qi was repairing Languja's genes, it was also the most direct cause of Languja's mutation. Even Lin Yi was not clear about the changes, let alone the ignorant Languja. If this continued, the residual power of the potion in the center would slowly be released, but it was difficult to tell whether it would become beneficial or harmful. Because of this, there were two extreme evaluations of Languja's potential. This time, following Lin Yi to find the thunder-gathering formation could be said to be Languja's greatest opportunity. Because Lin Yi would not attract the thunder retribution for no reason, it was also because of this that he suddenly had the idea to let Languja, who had already reached the profound ascension stage, try the effect of the thunder-gathering formation. The final result was that the power of the thunder and lightning forced all the residual potion hidden in Languja's cells out, turning it into one of the power of transformation and evolution. Coupled with the powerful improvement brought by the evolution itself and the sea dragon Niden that had not been completely digested, it caused him to rise by 3 levels in one go. However, this was not the end. In the thunder and lightning, the huge body of Languja, who had completed the evolution, shrank rapidly. In a blink of an eye, he was only about 2 meters tall, and the 3 claws also transformed into 4 strong and powerful limbs. Transforming into a human form? Lin Yi did not expect Languja to give him such a surprise at the end. Previously, he heard from Languja that the Sea Dragon clan could only completely transform into a human form after evolving into a sea dragon. If it was a sea dragon, it would be impossible for them to do this. However, the current Languja was obviously just a sea dragon that had just evolved. There was still a long way to go before he could evolve into a sea dragon, but he could already successfully transform into a human. It could only be said that this guy's mutation was quite powerful. In terms of talent, there was probably no one in the Sea Dragon clan that could be compared to Languja. Ha 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 ha, boss, I've also become a human. Boss, do you think I'm handsome? After Languja's transformation was completed, the thunder and lightning in the lightning gathering array also temporarily calmed down. Without the dazzling lightning, Languja's new appearance was completely revealed. His shoulder-length blue-gold hair exuded a luxurious radiance, looking wild and unruly in the midst of his messy hair. His angular face, sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, was filled with masculinity and domineeringness. The corners of his mouth curled up subconsciously, revealing a hint of a devilish smile. His golden ratio body was strong and slender, and his well-proportioned muscles contained explosive power. How could this be described with just the word handsome? This was simply a rhythm that could charm thousands of young girls. However, Lin Yi only curled his lips and said indifferently, "Don't you know how to change clothes?" That one sentence changed the scene. From a Prince Charming, he immediately turned into a gangster running around naked. Languja had just opened his legs and was already unsteady because he was not used to it. When he heard that, he directly fell to the ground. He stood up and scratched his head with a dry smile. "I don't think so. Boss, can you lend me your clothes?" Lin Yi was speechless. He could transform into a human form, but he couldn't transform his clothes together. He was really just a dabbler. Chapter 5663. Wahahaha, boss, even though your clothes are a little tight, it can't be helped that you're handsome. You look handsome no matter what you wear. Don't you think so, boss? Languja rubbed his sleeves and rolled up his trousers as he laughed proudly. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered with him. He walked to the side of the lightning circle and studied it for a while. This formation had a cooldown period, and the lightning from before had pretty much used up all the lightning in the sky. It needed some time to recharge. Taking this opportunity, Lin Yi found the key to close the array according to the description of the lightning gathering array and stopped it. With this discovery, Lin Yi had to make a trip back to the Green Cloud sect. As long as he could guard this lightning gathering formation, there would be more mystic ascension stage cultivators appearing in the small Jianghu. In the future, if he could really connect to the Sky-class island, the gap between them and the Sky-class island wouldn't be too huge. Languja, wait here first, I'll go back to the Blue Cloud sect and bring a few people here. After Lin Yi stopped the lightning gathering array, he got up and said to Languja. Languja nodded and said, "Okay, boss. Do you need me to send you there? With my speed, I can get there faster." Lin Yi thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it, my flying spirit beast is still outside, you stay here and stabilize your cultivation." It's not good if you don't familiarize yourself with the continuous leveling up. Languja heard this and did not insist. He had just transformed into a human form. He did not want to immediately change back to his original form, especially the clothes that he had just put on. He had to change back to his original form and then put it back on again. It was really troublesome. He had to cultivate the ability to transform clothes as soon as possible. Then go back quickly, boss. I'll practice walking here first. I've never tried to walk with my legs before. I'm really not used to it. Languza chuckled as he took 2 steps forward. Then, he fell head first onto the ground again. Luckily, he was prepared this time. In order not to dirty his clothes, he extended his hand and propped himself up. It was just that he did not grasp his center of gravity well, and his entire body fell backward again. A dignified, mysterious ascension late-stage super expert, of course, would not fall so easily. He used his hands to support himself, and his body stood up again, and then fell to the side again. Lin Yi didn't know what to say. He looked at Languza playing with the roly-poly toy and didn't say anything more. He left the place directly and returned to the mouth of the volcano outside. He summoned a flying spirit beast and flew back to the green cloud sect. When he returned to the blue cloud sect this time, Lin Yi did not alert anyone. He directly found Shin Ijie and asked Shin Ijie to inform Primordial Invincible and the other 2 masters of the mysterious ascending stage to leave the blue cloud sect quietly and flew to the nameless island. Along the way, Lin Yi had already told Shin Ijie the method of activating the Thunder Gathering formation. This formation must be controlled by the blue cloud sect. The current situation of the small Jianghu in the ancient times was already dominated by the blue cloud sect. There was no need to create another sect that could compete with the Blue Cloud sect. When he brought the 4 into the cave and arrived at the valley where the Thunder Gathering formation was located, Languja could already walk and jump normally. He looked no different from an ordinary person. After all, he was a master, he did not lack balance. It was easy to find the trick with a little practice. On the way, Lin Yi had already told them about Languja's transformation. However, after seeing it with his own eyes, he still felt a little strange. After all, when they parted yesterday, he was still a sea serpent. Today, he had turned into a fierce man. This transformation was too huge. Languja did not treat them as outsiders. He laughed and patted on one of their shoulders. How is it? Are you all stunned? Are you shocked by this young master's dazzling and handsome appearance? It's okay. After a few more looks, you will become accustomed to feeling inferior. By then, there won't be any problems. Ha 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 ha. The others were fine with it, but Yi could not help but say, Languja, you were quite good at talking yesterday. Why have you regressed so much today? When it comes to handsome, how can you be better than me? Suddenly, he remembered that Lin Yi was standing beside him. Yi quickly added, not to mention, there's also our boss Lin. After that, Yi turned his head and smiled at Lin Yi. What he meant was, Master, you will always be the most handsome man in the world. I, Yi, will always be the second most handsome man in the world. Of course, in his heart, Yi would never admit it. In this world, except for Master Yi, who dared to say the word handsome, Lin Yi directly ignored this pair of treasures. He signaled Shin Ijie and the other 2 to follow him. The matter of the Thunder Gathering formation must be explained clearly. Who would have the time to care about these 2? Languja saw Lin Yi walking towards the Thunder Gathering formation. He thought to himself, boss is strong, but in terms of handsome, he is only a little better than me. But who is Yi? He looks like a zombie. Thinking of this, Languja suddenly squinted at Yi and said with a face full of disdain, I admit that boss is more handsome than me. But how are you handsome, you old fart? You look like dirt. Oh no, I just patted your shoulder. It's so dirty. I need to wash my hands. Yi was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and said, what did you say, you damn sea snake? Do you believe that I won't kill you? In Yi's impression, Languja was a weak sea snake who was caught by the center to use potions to enhance his strength. Originally, sea dragons and sea snakes looked quite similar. Languja also had the blood of sea snakes, so it was not nonsense. Languja sneered and said, you old fart, you're quite bold. Come on, try to kill me. After that, Languja did not do anything. He directly released his aura. The powerful aura of the mysterious Ascension late stage was immediately revealed. Yu Yi was dumbfounded. How did this damn sea snake suddenly become mysterious Ascension late stage? Damn, it must be Lin Yi's doing. I only left him for a few days. All the benefits were given to this damn sea snake. He didn't even think about who he was working so hard for. After glancing at Lin Yi's back with hidden bitterness, Yu Yi immediately said to Languja with a smile on his face, I mean, Brother Lan, you're so handsome. You're going to kill me. You're so handsome that you're not giving others a way out. Ha ha, ha ha. Other than Boss Lin Yi, you're definitely the most handsome. I, Yu Yi, can barely be considered third. The situation was stronger than the person. Yu Yi immediately changed his words without saying a word. It was just that the change was a little stiff. He could only laugh a few times to cover it up. Languja expressed his satisfaction. He snorted twice and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He looked at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Chapter 56-64. Yu Yi gritted his teeth and laughed dryly a couple more times before running over to Lin Yi's side. There was no helping it if he wanted to get stronger, he had to grab onto Lin Yi's little bastard. He thought that he would be the #1 of the pugilistic world after reaching Shenzhen, but he didn't expect that there would be an undefeatable immemorial, and then Shangguan Feixing who was stronger than him, and now even that dead sea snake was about to break through the sky. Yu Yi felt that his life was too tragic, and suddenly he felt that Lin Yi's departure wasn't a good thing for him. Primordial Invincible, Shangguan Feixing, and Xin Yijie all looked back in surprise when they felt Languja's powerful aura, but they did not stop. To them, Lin Yi's words were more important than anything else, so they continued to follow behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi continued to ignore their behavior. As long as they did not fight, he would let them do whatever they wanted. Languja tried to make a pose for a long time, but in the end, no one was appreciating it. He immediately felt bored and decided to stroll over to Lin Yi's side to listen to Lin Yi talk about the lightning convergence matrix. This thunder-gathering formation is one of the keys for a peak nascent soul realm cultivator to advance to the mysterious ascension stage. Only after going through the thunder tribulation can you integrate your own spiritual roots and become a mysterious ascension stage cultivator. However, a normal peak nascent soul realm cultivator cannot withstand the attack of the thunder tribulation. Lin Yi said as he activated the thunder-gathering formation. Primordial Invincible, Shangguan Feixing, and Xin Yijie had all gone through the thunder tribulation created by Lin Yi. When they felt the lightning in the thunder-gathering formation, they became serious. The power of the lightning in the thunder-gathering formation should be stronger than the thunder tribulation created by Lin Yi. Of course, they had never experienced Lin Yi's lightning burial before, which was why they thought that way. Compared to Lin Yi's lightning burial, this spot was much weaker. Without the Thunder Shen pill, a perfected nascent soul cultivator of the human race would not be able to withstand it. Even the most talented sea beasts might not be able to withstand the thunder tribulation. Lin Yi could refine the Thunder Shen pill, and he also had the Thunder Shen rattan in his hands. However, the development of the primordial underworld couldn't be undertaken by Lin Yi alone. He had to let the primordial underworld operate well. Here are 2 Thunder Shen pills as backups and a formula of the Thunder Shen pill. Xin Yijie, keep it well and give it to Ma Zedong to study on the formula later. Let's see if we can make any changes. Lin Yi could not improve the formula by himself, so he could only pin his hope on Ma Zedong. The alchemy recipes of the primordial underworld had its own system. Even the Thunder Shen pill recipe of the Heaven Rank Island was not suitable here because there was no Thunder Shen Teng here. He could only find other ways to replace the ingredients in the pill formula. For example, the precious Thunder Shen rattan could be replaced by the inner core of a sea beast of the Thunder attribute, or the inner core of a sea beast of the ethereal ascension stage. It all depended on Ma Zedong and the others to study it. Xin Yijie agreed and solemnly took the 2 Thunder Shen pills and the formula from Lin Yi. Lin Yi did not say who to give these 2 pills to. Xin Yijie guessed that he wanted him to do as he saw fit. Currently, he was already at the perfected nascent soul realm, but he did not have enough experience. Even if he had the Thunder Shen pill, he would not dare to try to advance. Bing Wuqing was in the same situation. In terms of her relationship with Lin Yi, Bing Wuqing was not inferior to Xin Yijie at all. However, he also did not have enough experience, so he might not succeed in breaking through to the ethereal ascension stage now. The only thing was that Bing Wuqing's talent was top-notch in the primordial underworld. Therefore, Xin Yijie had decided that one of the 2 Thunder Shen pills must be reserved for Bing Wuqing. Yijie, I'll leave this thunder-gathering matrix to you. Only you can master the trick of opening the matrix. Then, you and the rest of you can discuss and choose suitable nascent soul realm cultivators to accept the Thunder Tribulation every year. Even without the Thunder Shen pill, they still have a chance to advance. It all depends on their choice. Lin Yi told Xin Yijie the trick of opening the matrix using vital qi telepathy and reminded him. Yes, Grand Uncle, I'll remember. Xin Yijie bowed respectfully and said, the primordial underworld will be grateful for Grand Uncle's great kindness. Not to mention that Lin Yi had left behind the recipe of the Thunder Shen pill. Even without the Thunder Shen pill, the thunder-gathering matrix alone had already provided the cultivators in the primordial underworld with hope of advancing to the ethereal ascension stage for thousands of years. Xin Yijie was right. This was a great kindness that all the cultivators in the primordial underworld would remember. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't really care about these things. After giving a few more instructions, he left with Languja. The matters of the immemorial underworld had finally come to an end. Lin Yi was eager to return home and only wanted to get back to Heaven Tier Island as soon as possible. The time taken for the Yuanshan projection had greatly exceeded the original estimation. He did not know if there were any changes on the Heaven Stage Island. After all, the Heaven Stage Island was where Lin Yi was now. Therefore, he did not want to waste even a second. He brought Languja back to the teleportation point at full speed and teleported to the transit station. As soon as he arrived at the transit station, Lin Yi immediately rushed to the newly built residence. He wanted to see Meng Yarrow and the others who were in a coma. With old Lin and the others around, Lin Yi had never worried about any problems. However, what surprised Lin Yi was that there was no one on the island. Not only old Lin and Aunt Qing, but all the people who were in a coma were also missing. What happened? Where did everyone go? Lin Yi was really shocked. Those who were left here were the most important people to him. If something happened to them, it would be a pain that Lin Yi could not bear. His divine sense spread out instantly, covering the entire island. However, he still could not find any trace of anyone. Lin Yi, who was always calm, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Boss, there seems to be someone in the sea. Seeing that Lin Yi was running around looking, Languja did not dare to stay idle. However, as a member of the Endless Sea Beast King clan, his attention would naturally be focused on the sea. Therefore, he found the figure in the sea earlier than Lin Yi. Lin Yi was startled. He immediately swept his divine sense over. He had never thought of going into the sea before. After all, Meng Yarrow and the others were in a coma. It was impossible for them to play in the sea. In addition, the figure had just emerged from the sea, so it was discovered by Languja first. It's Chen Yutian. Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he saw someone close to him. Since Chen Yutian was fine, the others shouldn't be in danger either. He was too worried, but the moment he saw Chen Yutian, he regained his composure. Chapter 5665. Boss Lin Yi, you're back. I caught a lot of seafood, let's barbecue together. Chen Yutian laughed as he ran to the beach. Seeing his expression, Lin Yi was even more certain that the others were safe. After greeting Chen Yutian with a smile, Lin Yi asked, why are you here alone? Where did the others go? Oh, it's Senior Lin who had something to do, and he brought Aunt Qing back to the common world. Chen Yutian threw down 2 net bags and stood up straight. Lin Yi used to be his instructor, so every time he saw Lin Yi, Chen Yutian would naturally want to stand up straight and talk. This habit couldn't be changed no matter what. Without Senior Lin here, we felt that we couldn't guarantee our safety here, so we might as well go back to the common world. It'll be easier to control the situation there, so they brought Yarrow and my sister back. I stayed behind to wait for you, boss. I was afraid that you'd be worried if you didn't see them when you came back, Chen Yutian explained briefly, and Lin Yi got the general idea. Old Lin was probably going back to the West Star village to drink the spring water. He left for a long time this time, and the others were afraid that the people from the ancient small Jianghu would come to the transfer station. Without old Lin, the rest of them weren't a match for the practitioners from the ancient small Jianghu, so they went back to the common world. Now in the common world, they were the top existences, and no one in the world was a match for them. Unless they used weapons of mass destruction, everything was under control. It was indeed more convenient for them to go back to the common world. It's good that they went back. Let's go back together. After visiting them, I'll go back to Sky Tier Island. Lin Yi signaled Chen Yutian to go to the transfer point with him. Chen Yutian froze and pointed at the 2 bags of seafood on the ground. Don't you want to eat some seafood first? I'm about to throw up from eating this stuff. What's so special about it? Languja glanced at the 2 nets on the ground in disgust and shook his head, following Lin Yi. I forgot to ask, who are you? Chen Yutian saw that Lin Yi wasn't interested, so he opened the 2 nets and threw them back into the sea. He chased after Languja and asked. Just when Languja was about to strike the most handsome pose to answer this question, Lin Yi said without turning his head, his name is Languja, he's a little brother that I took in the immemorial martial world. Languja, Chen Yutian is also my follower. He's one of my earliest followers, so you have to respect him. If Lin Yi didn't say this, with Languja's strength, he wouldn't put Chen Yutian, who was only at the foundation establishment stage, in his eyes. As for now, he didn't seem to put Chen Yutian in his eyes. Boss, don't worry, I will respect him, but I don't think there's any need to respect people who aren't as handsome as me. Of course, in this world, I don't think there's anyone more handsome than me, ha ha ha. Boss, you might be the only exception. Lin Yi was speechless. Did Languja go crazy when he transformed into a human? Or was it because there were too many lightning bolts in the lightning gathering formation, and he became stupid? How could he be so narcissistic to this extent? You're a flood dragon. Can't you show some dominance of a flood dragon? Lin Yi didn't turn around, but his divine sense could clearly see that Languja struck a pose after speaking. Lin Yi's mouth twitched. Forget it, this guy should just give up on treatment. Chen Yutian, on the other hand, looked at Languja curiously. He didn't know where Lin Yi found this guy. To be honest, Lin Yi was more handsome than him, and he couldn't see through Lin Yi's strength at all. It was just that the pose was really ugly. Languja didn't know what Chen Yutian was thinking, or else he would have turned back to his original form and spit on Chen Yutian's face. After striking the pose that he thought was perfect, Languja put his arm around Chen Yutian's shoulder and said, since boss said that you followed boss first, then I'll call you Yutian bro. To be honest, although you're not as handsome as me, you're still much better than that old bastard Yu Yi. It seems like the 3rd seat is for you, and that old bastard has to move back again. I'm sure he'll be pissed to death later, haha. Chen Yutian laughed dryly. Thanks for the compliment. Actually, you can just call me by my name, no need to be so polite. Yutian bro sounded like someone who would only appear on rainy days. He was such a sunny person, how was he related to rainy days? No need to be so polite, it's what I should do. This time we're going to your territory, I still need you to show me around, Yutian bro, otherwise, a handsome man like me will attract a lot of attention when I go out, and I won't know where to go. Languja had a matter-of-fact expression on his face, and Chen Yutian felt that he couldn't keep up with Languja's train of thought. He couldn't continue the conversation. Luckily, they arrived at the teleportation point, and Chen Yutian quickly shook off Languja's arm and walked into the teleportation point first. Lin Yi activated the teleportation point after placing the spiritual jade in place. After a flash of light, the 3 of them successfully left the station and returned to the mortal world's teleportation point. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to look for the Blue Sky Valley near the River of Consciousness, but he couldn't find the exact location after asking around for a long time. In order to not waste time, he decided to wait until next time. Near the teleportation point, Yu Bing had people set up an Ice Palace branch, and there were many mortal world masters stationed there. One reason was to protect the teleportation point from being destroyed, and the other was to wait for Lin Yi's return. So as soon as Lin Yi and the other 2 appeared on the teleportation point, A helicopter flew over and brought them to the nearest airport, where they transferred to a private plane that was already prepared. Languja said excitedly, "Boss, your place is really interesting. The flying equipment is really good, it's fast and stable, and it doesn't need spiritual jade to fly, it's the best. It's almost the same as the Arifu OU in the center." Lin Yi smiled faintly and didn't explain further. The technological power of the common world, when placed in the world of practitioners, was also a rather magical thing. It was just like the technological boom on Sky-class Island, and Kang Xiaoming's armor and laser cannons. It was normal for Languza to be surprised. Chapter 56-66. Lin Yi chatted with the girls for a long time, and a few hours passed. Chen Yutian knocked on the door. "Boss, I received a mission from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau, and I need to leave for a while, so I came to inform you." "Go, but be careful. Although you should have no opponents in the common world, the center seems to be stirring up trouble again. Their strength is not to be underestimated." Lin Yi stood up and patted Chen Yutian's shoulder, reminding him. Lin Yi wasn't sure whether the center would come back to cause trouble or not, so he didn't say much. Chen Yutian nodded and left. Lin Yi looked back at the girls and followed him out. It was rare for him to come back, so Lin Yi planned to meet his two followers, Kang Xiaobo and Fatty Lai. They didn't have much interest in training, but the common world's business was the best stage for them to show off their skills. As for these two followers who followed Lin Yi since the beginning, he still had to meet them before he went back. After Languza had seen his sisters-in-law who had fainted, he had been eating and drinking in the living room while watching TV. Whether it was the wonderful programs or the delicious food, it made Languza very happy. He felt that this place was like heaven. What kind of life did he have in the endless sea before? Seeing Lin Yi coming downstairs, Languza quickly stretched his neck and swallowed the food in his mouth. He said excitedly, "Boss, do you want to take me out for a walk? I can go anytime." Chen Yutian was supposed to bring Languza out to play, but Chen Yutian went out on a mission, so he could only rely on Lin Yi. As for Yu Bing and Yu Dake, Languza didn't think that Chen Yutian could get along with them. Besides, they were in charge of guarding this place, so it wouldn't be easy for them to leave. Lin Yi smiled faintly. This was the first time Languza came to the common world, and he was full of curiosity. He didn't plan to bring Languza to meet Kang Xiaobo and Lai Changyi, but since Languza wanted to go out, Lin Yi didn't mind bringing him around. "Let's go, I'll bring you around." After saying that, Lin Yi said goodbye to Yu Bing and the others and brought the excited Languza out. Walking on the main street, Languza felt that there were new and interesting things everywhere. He had never even been to a human town in the ancient era's little Jianghu. Coming to the mortal world at once, of course he had a feeling that there was too much to take in. Languza's handsome face also brought him a lot of attention, especially his luxurious blue-golden hair, which was especially dazzling under the sun. Luckily, the people in the common world were used to seeing the world, so they thought that this kid dyed his hair. There wasn't a scene like what Languza expected. "Boss, this place is so fun, how long are you planning to stay here? Why don't we just stay here forever?" Languza liked this place more and more, so he started to encourage Lin Yi to stay here. As for the sparse spiritual qi in the common world, it was completely ignored by Languza. After all, at his level, it was basically impossible to rely on natural spiritual qi to level up. As long as he didn't overuse his spiritual qi, it didn't matter if there was spiritual qi or not. At most, he could use spiritual jades to replenish his daily consumption. Lin Yi's heart moved. If Languza liked to stay in the common world, then it was not a bad choice. After all, the people from the center had already returned to the common world. He didn't know if they could create a profound ascending stage master here. With Languza's strength, the human practitioners in the profound ascending stage were basically no match for him. With him here, safety would be more guaranteed. "Languza, I can't stay here for too long, but if you like it here, you can stay," Lin Yi said directly to Languza. Languza hesitated for a moment and said, "I want to follow boss, I'll go wherever boss goes." Although the common world was very attractive to him, Languza still knew how he should choose. Lin Yi smiled and said, "Didn't I say that you can't go where I want to go, so if you don't stay here, you have to go back to the endless sea." Then I'll stay here. Languja didn't hesitate and immediately made a choice. After seeing the prosperity of the common world, he didn't want to go back to the damn endless sea. If you choose to stay here, then I have to ask you to help me protect the people in the villa, okay? Lin Yi solemnly said to Languja. This was related to the safety of Chu Mengyaro and others. He would not take it lightly. Boss, rest assured, the safety of the sisters-in-law will be handed over to me, Languja. If there's any problem with the sisters-in-law, just look for me, boss. Languja immediately patted his chest and took care of everything. This was a good reason to stay. Moreover, Lin Yi didn't use an order, but a negotiating tone. Even the simple-minded Languja could feel the respect that Lin Yi had for him. With a boss like this, what else was there to say? Thank you, with you here, I feel much more assured. Lin Yi smiled and nodded to Languja. Now, even if the center wanted to cause trouble, there wouldn't be anything to worry about. Unknowingly, the two walked to the entrance of Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group. Lin Yi raised his head and looked at the tall building. For a moment, he was in a daze. The passers-by around him gave Lin Yi a strange feeling. It was familiar, yet strange. The past days felt like a lifetime ago. Languja stood beside Lin Yi, looking around without any impatience. When he saw a pretty girl sneaking glances at him, he purposely put on a bright smile, and when the girl blushed and turned to leave, he started laughing out loud, as if he was enjoying himself. Lin Yi came back to his senses, shook his head slightly, and walked towards the entrance of the building. Languja looked back and saw that Lin Yi wasn't beside him, so he quickly followed. After entering the building, Lin Yi directly walked towards the elevator used by the higher-ups of the company. A beautiful girl at the front desk quickly stopped Lin Yi. Before she said anything, she showed a sweet smile and said respectfully, "Hello sir, how can I help you?" Lin Yi was stunned. He just remembered that he hadn't appeared in Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Group for a long time. Most of the employees probably didn't know him. Actually, there weren't many old employees who knew Lin Yi, so it was normal that he was stopped.